Good evening. We will call this meeting to order with, the first item of business is a roll call, and I note that all board members are present with the exception of Mr. Lee, who is traveling. We'll turn the agenda over to you, Stephen. Welcome.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight we are pleased to introduce you to a Hillcrest High School senior, Ariel Methvin, who is a student of our new SPS Teacher of the Year, Mrs. Courtney Dameron. And Mrs. Dameron says that Ariel demonstrates tremendous Hornet pride. Would you come up for a moment? Ariel is an outstanding leader in junior ROTC for the past 4 years. She is the executive officer and in charge of the entire line of staff. She has also received the JROTC DAR Scholarship along with the Steve Smay Scholarship. After graduation, Ariel plans to attend Drury University and major in biology. At this time, we invite the family members of Ariel, along with any Hillcrest representative present, to please stand so that we may acknowledge all of you as well. Hillcrest. Whenever you're ready, Ariel.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
We'll now move on with our Honoring Excellence, and we'll begin with our Missouri 100 Scholars. 4 SPS students have been selected for the 2019 Missouri Scholars 100, a statewide program that honors 100 of Missouri's top academic students in the graduating class of 2019. Central High School seniors Andrew Eisenhower and Malia Morgan and Glendale High School seniors Ethan Miller and Drew Robertson have achieved this honor. They will be recognized among other scholars from Missouri this Sunday during a luncheon in Columbia. Would those students please come forward? You can stand up here for us so the board can see you. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the Scholars Program, but I want them up here so we can celebrate them. Missouri Scholars 100 is a program sponsored by the Missouri Association of Secondary School Principals. Schools across Missouri nominate candidates for this statewide recognition. Each student nominated must first meet 10 academic criteria which demonstrate their academic strength. A student must have a minimum GPA of 3.75, a minimum ACT score of 29, or a minimum SAT score of 1600, be ranked in the upper 10% of their class, and have taken high-level courses in math, science, English, and foreign language. The student must have excellent attendance, be an exemplary school citizen, and be involved in school activities. What outstanding representatives these students are for our school district. We know their families are also very proud of them, and so we invite family and friends to stand and be recognized as well. Congratulations to Andrew, Malia, Ethan, and Drew. And now it is our honor to introduce you to 2 senior high school juniors, Lauren Rotz and Jacob Sharp. Lauren and Jacob, would you come up? Lauren and Jacob achieved a perfect score on their ACT exams, earning 36 of 36 points.
Say it again, Stephen.
36 of 36 points possible. So an amazing accomplishment. Awesome. Yes. So to put that in perspective, only 0.2% of all students who take the ACT nationwide earn a perfect score. 0.2%. Lauren and Jacob both participate in the International Baccalaureate program at Central, and they are both active in music groups at school. Jacob plays percussion in the band, participates in math team, science olympiad, and is a member of student council. Lauren is a chamber choir member and participates in FCA, Key Club, and French Honor Society. We invite their families to stand so that we may recognize them for their support of Lauren and Jacob. Congratulations. We are so pleased to have with us our Teacher of the Year and Teacher of the Year finalists this evening. If you would all please come forward. We present to you the 2019-2020 Teacher of the Year and 4 finalists: Courtney Dameron, Sherry Bala, Beth McIntyre, Audra Uzel, and Kevin Zimmerman. Last week, the Foundation for Springfield Public Schools hosted the annual Teacher Appreciation Banquet. This is always a wonderful event, and we appreciate the efforts of Natalie Murdoch and Pamela Anderson and the entire Foundation staff for their honor of our teachers. At that event, Courtney Dameron was named the 2019-2020 Teacher of the Year. Courtney is a family and consumer sciences teacher at Hillcrest High School, which is also her alma mater. She discovered her passion for teaching while taking a FACS class at Hillcrest. Courtney earned her bachelor's degree at Missouri State University and her master's degree from Drury University. She's been teaching FACS at Hillcrest for the past 4 years. Courtney and the 4 finalists were selected from 171 nominations as outstanding examples of teachers at SPS. More information on our finalists: Sherry Bala is a Wonder Years teacher at York Elementary School. She's unable to be with us.
I'm waiting to see how
Very
ready
quiet and understated. She's just working with kids.
She is a Wonder Years teacher.
I am a Wonder Years teacher. I'm exhausted.
Classroom 2 weeks ago, and the kids were just, they were happy. Beth McIntyre is an English language arts teacher at Central High School. Audra Uzel is our Springfield Scholars teacher with our Phelps program at Central High School, and Kevin Zimmerman is our fine arts teacher at Harrison Elementary School. We are so proud of all of you.
Yeah.
Thank you very,
Nice to
very
see
much.
you all.
So we've now come to our power, I'm
Do
sorry.
they have families here?
Yes, they
Our
do.
families here, are Teachers of the Year, and finalists, please stand. That's awesome. We've come to our Power of One team celebration, which allows us to honor a group of our employees who have demonstrated the powerful impact of teamwork and collaboration. Each month, we select a different team to feature, and this is our April Power of One.
Our main goal and our mission is to provide parents with education and empower them to be able to work with their kids the way they need to so that kids can be successful. So we have parenting class. Incarcerated parents come to class, and we talk about the skills that they need to be better parents once they get out.
Well, the Parents as Teachers program approached Sheriff Arnott, and it's something that he wanted implemented at the jail, so we accommodated that request.
Some of the things that we cover are relationships, what's healthy, what's not healthy, how do we make sure those relationships stay healthy. We talk about circles of support, who's got your back. Our goal is to empower and educate these parents. And our team that comes is very good at knowing our curriculum. So if we come to class and we're talking about a topic and a discussion starts, we have the knowledge background that we can address that issue. So we can switch topics in the middle of class.
The sheriff allows us to provide programs, and he sees the benefit of those programs. I can't imagine what it would be like without the programs. It gives them contact with the outside and allows them to realize that there's still people out there in the community that care.
I would like to say that because our school district has become invested in not only the Parents as Teachers program, but in the things that Parents as Teachers does, that's what makes this program available, and that's what makes it work.
Now, make sure you know who's here.
So yes, it is our pleasure to introduce you to the members of the Parents as Teachers Strengthening Families Jail Team, Leslie Berry, Stacy Coiner, Carla Godfrey, Robin Hopkins, Sherry Nichols, Troy Rooch, Tamara Scully, and Renee Thornton. Please come forward.
We have to take a picture. I mean, you guys. Come on.
Face Teresa, and we'll get you all together. There we go.
Oh no, the cheerleading pose.
Awesome.
Congratulations.
So at this time, we will honor one of our partner organizations and highlight the work that they do to support our students in schools. Tonight, we're pleased to recognize our Buddy Bears program. That program was designed to encourage friendships between Reed Academy students and Missouri State student athletes, creating positive role models for the Reed students. Beginning in 2014, as a collaboration between MSU football players and special education students, it expanded in 2017 to include additional MSU athletes and at-risk students. Buddy Bears can read together, complete homework or projects, talk about life, or eat lunch together. The program would not be possible without the collaboration of Aja Jones, Director of Student Athlete Development and Community Engagement, Kyle Motes, the MSU Athletic Director, and Rich Dameron, who was entrusted with the program when the original coordinating teacher moved out of state. As with many programs of this nature, the program provides benefits for everyone involved. Aja Jones notes, quote, "It's been really cool to see the impact that both parties have on each other because our athletes are learning more about people who are different than them and the importance of community service. They also have a new friend, and it's an opportunity for them to forget about their sport for a little while and about life as a college student and just have some fun with a student who really appreciates them." Tonight, we're grateful to have 4 of the student athletes who have been involved with the program for multiple years and who have the highest attendance rate for this school year. Please come forward when I call your name. We have Caitlin Maxwell, Madeline Sayville, Michaela Mascara, and Keely Hawkins. Also, thank you to Aja Jones, Kyle Motes, and Missouri State athletes for the investment you are making in our students at Reed. If you could come forward, Mr. Motes, as well. We thank you so much.
So, can we ask a question?
Absolutely,
Okay.
please, Dr. Frederick.
So, I mean, this is such an amazing program, and I've heard much about it, and the influence that you have on some of the kids. So, does anyone want to speak up and just give us a few words of what this means to you and what you're doing and working with our middle school kids? Anyone? There's got to be a talker.
I mean, yeah, sure. I mean, I think it's like a pretty special, I mean, especially the first day, like, it's always, get to know each other, but as you keep going, like, week after week, it's kind of cool to just see, like, a friendship develop, and, yeah, you spend at least an hour of your week with them, and I mean, it's cool to see what they're doing, and talk about what's going on in their life, and their extracurriculars, and make a special moment for just them, so.
That's awesome. Anyone else? You want to?
I love it. I think it goes both ways, which Aja pointed out. Like, I love to go visit my buddy bear, and like, I know like she loves like seeing me. She'll always wear like beach volleyball shirt. So it's always fun and like catching up like every week and just helping her out with schoolwork and like socialization is really cool.
You guys are making a huge difference in the lives of some of our students. You know, else want to say anything? Not everyone likes to
Yeah,
speak.
no, I think it's super beneficial for both of us. One thing that she just said to me the other week was that she thinks she can sense when I'm coming in now. So it's just funny to continue to build that relationship and strengthen it as we go on, because now it just feels like we're close friends.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Dameron, do you have anything you want to say?
So I've got, if you've got to say, I've got shirts for all of you at the big kid table here. So I've got a shirt for all of you that I'll leave over here so it's not in your way. So those will be there for you.
Oh, we want it.
So you can pick up. And then what I thought was cool is to get some perspective, if you've got time real quick, on what the kids say from their side. So this is the one that is with Keely. She says, my buddy bear is really nice and very relatable. She's a good person and helps me do my work. This program helps me get caught up on my work. I think others should have buddy bears to help them with the stress of their work. Buddy bears can always help. That's from one of our 7th graders. Caitlin's right here. She says, we always get work done together. We have a lot of things in common. She always helps me and make it fun. I made a new friend and we help each other. She's always here when I need her the most. I hope she's my buddy bear when I'm in 7th grade.
Oh.
Michaela said, I really like my buddy bear. She's nice and helpful. Also, we both have something in common. We both love volleyball. So that's why I like my buddy bear. And finally, with Maddie, it says, I like how she helps me and I have someone to talk to. I like getting to hang out. At the same time, she's helping me with my overdue work.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just so proud of each and every one of them. I mean, they are awesome role models for our kids. I mean, if you were to look up their bios and things, I mean, you can see, obviously they're student athletes and they're involved, but they're on the AD honor roll, they're on the Missouri Valley Conference honor rolls. I mean, they win all kinds of awards. So to see them come in and invest in our students is truly a special thing. So, thank you.
Thank you. Wonderful.
I want a buddy bear.
I think everybody could use a buddy bear.
We all agree with that.
Thank you.
And that concludes our Honoring Excellence. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen.
And remember, you do not have to stay.
I was going to
Might
say,
give them the opportunity
yeah,
to release.
for anybody who wants to go at this time, this is a great time to do it. Thank you for coming. It was our pleasure to honor you, sharing your achievements.
Bye, ladies. Hey, you didn't say
Yeah,
wait.
that's great.
Yeah,
Thank you.
please do.
There's a card for you.
Oh, thank
You can read
you.
my handwriting. Probably not.
We want a buddy bear for each
We
of
want a
us.
board, buddy bear.
Board buddy bear. Board buddies.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to move on now into the approval of the agenda. The recommended action is that the board approve the agenda as presented. Without hearing any discussion, is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Thank you. Lena, is there a second? Second. Charles, thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, let's vote.
Let's give it to her verbal.
Hi, but my stuff's not working correctly.
All right, well, we'll go on to item 2.01 while the computer's doing its work. And 2.01 is public comments, and we do have one presenter, so I will read this as an introduction. The Board of Education welcomes comments from the audience about the issues being discussed. It is recommended that requests to speak be submitted prior to the beginning of the meeting. Comments will be limited to 5 minutes for each speaker and will be timed by the board secretary. It's inappropriate to address the board about individual students or individual staff members by name in an open meeting. If you have concerns about individuals, these concerns should be addressed through the appropriate administrative supervisors, either in the schools or in the district office. The board uses this time in our meeting to listen to comments and/or concerns from the public, but will not comment nor engage with speakers during this meeting. If you have materials that you want to share, please provide them to the board secretary and she will distribute them to the board members. Our speaker is Dr. Norman Ely. Dr. Ely, welcome, sir.
Thank you.
all of you again. Tonight I'm going to continue presenting the real facts that relate specifically to the Get the Facts Here document that you clicked out to all major cybersecurity issues facing SPS's technology. There are still serious security issues with evidence of harm to students, employees, and community members that are not being addressed. These are via the school-issued devices and SPS technology. In your SPS Get the Facts, you stated, SPS is not collecting personal information on our servers beyond the appropriate staff and student details provided to the district. I would challenge the district to inform our community what they consider appropriate. Does SPS and this school board deem it appropriate to collect and store personal usernames and plain text passwords in SPS's school-issued Google Drives for all personnel accounts? Let me read you just a partial list of what we have seen. Multiple personal Amazon accounts for parents and employees. Multiple community members' timeshare accounts. On an employee's city utilities account. An employee's Facebook account. Multiple employees' My Mercy medical accounts. A parent's work mail. A spouse's work login and password to a secure account. A business owner's legal Zoom account. A parent's eBay account. A community member's bank account. A community member's Netflix account. An employee's Federal Credit Union account. An employee's Walmart.com account and a community member's Walmart.com account. Multiple employees' bank accounts. An employee's Beachbody account. An employee's Children's Place account. An employee's Delta Dental account. An employee's Convergent Care account. A family's Dish TV account. Personal Dropbox, PayPal, Gymboree, Zenfolio, Fitbit, personal iClouds, personal Google accounts, and personal emails. A 12-year-old student's personal cell phone contact from her personal cell phone was captured and stored, and the list goes on and on. In one case, SPS managed to capture the personal accounts from 3 separate households when only one elementary-age child was enrolled in SPS. That's right. They captured a parent, grandparents, and an uncle's information on one child's SPS Google Drive. And quite possibly the worst we've seen is employees' private and personal Siri and Safari searches, as well as every speech-to-text message from the employee's personal iPhone for 3 years. What I have listed here tonight does not even come close to all of the evidence and personal information being collected from our community by SPS. It would take significantly more than 3 to 5 minutes to present that. In fact, the amount of personal data being collected and stored to SPS's school-issued Google Drive accounts is so horrific that even the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission recommended to an employee and a local attorney that the union should file an unfair labor practice suit against SPS because the amount of personal data collected provides the leaders of SPS an unfair advantage over their employees. All the information that we have presented is factual and well documented, and the entire community is seeing the evidence and sharing it. Again, as I have stated before, the only one that keeps repeatedly providing misinformation to this community is SPS. I'd like to finish with a candid quote from one of the board members, and I quote, "Did anyone really think it was a good idea to roll out all of these Chromebooks in 3 years before we really knew what could really happen? This board knows what happened, and all of Springfield is finding out as well. It's time for SPS to admit their mistake. We hope that the new information security officer will understand the magnitude of this situation and quickly find a resolution." Thank you.
Next item is 3.01, approval of minutes. That's part of the consent agenda. And that, yeah, that's item 3.01.
They're all non-agenda.
Oh, well, we've got more. Sorry.
But they're non-agenda.
Oh, okay.
For later.
Okay, hold on a sec. All right, thank you. Well, all right, let's go on. Let's go back to where we were. We've got some consent agenda items. 3.01 would be approval of minutes. 4.01, contracts, agreements, change orders, and bids. 5.01 is the consent agenda on the personnel. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda items 3.01 through 5.01. Charles, is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Bruce. Are we ready to vote? Let's vote. See if it works this time. There we go. And the ayes have it. And item 6 is the treasurer's report. Good evening, Ms. Zimbri.
Good evening. We posted for you this evening, and actually in advance, as is our normal practice, 12 different reports that provide you with the details behind the past month of operation in Springfield Public Schools. And I'll highlight for you a few items. Overall, our change in revenue, we do have a slight decrease of $328,912 in operating revenues. We continue to maintain a stable fund balance percentage estimate for June 30 of 2019, and this changes us from 16.90% to 16.78%. So again, very steady. The information includes a variety of changes to the formula money based on the best information we have available to us from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. And as usual, we've posted that continuing 2013-2014 series bond report. And as you look at that ending fund balance, we're showing if all things were to be expended by June 30, we would have a remaining balance of $38,656. So we have moved forward in that progression. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Any questions for Carol? Thank you, Carol.
Okay.
And the action that is being recommended to us tonight is that the board approves the treasurer's report as presented. Do I hear a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Thank you, Jill.
Second?
Denise as a second. Are we ready to vote? Let's vote. And the ayes have it. Next on our item, our agenda are a couple information and reports. The first one is the Greene County Family Justice Center. Who's got that?
I have that.
Okay, thank you,
I
Carol.
apologize, I should have said something. So you did sneak up on me, thank you for that. Actually, as Chief Williams is going to join us for just a moment. So this evening, I'm pleased to share with you an information report and actually introduce our guest speakers. We were contacted by Mr. Patterson and Chief Williams not long ago with regard to an opportunity for your consideration, and they're here this evening to provide you with all the specificity. While they do not need introduction, I would like to share that to my far right is Mr. Dan Patterson. He is the chief prosecuting attorney for the Springfield, Greene County area, and he's been with the organization since 1996, is that correct? Right. Yeah, and has served in a variety of roles, and you've been prosecuting attorney since 2010. Some longevity there. And then Chief Paul Williams joined our community as the chief of police in 2010 as well.
Came as a package.
As a package deal, yes. Prior,
Law and order.
prior to that, he had served in a variety of roles and retired as major after 29 years from Tulsa, Oklahoma service. So we welcome you both, and I believe that you are equipped for success.
And I'm going to defer to the prosecutor who's going to make the presentation today, and I'm going to go have a seat.
Okay. Don't far, don't go
He's
far.
got my back. Good evening. On behalf of the Greene County Family Justice Center Steering Committee and partners, thank you for considering our proposal tonight. I'm joined tonight by many of the members of that steering committee, as well as individuals who work or supervise individuals that work in the center, as well as the members of the Greene County Commission who provided the seed funding for the Greene County Family Justice Center tonight. We consider the Springfield Public Schools already to be an informal partner. For example, by providing school bus service to Harmony House, our local shelter. We believe there's an opportunity, a great opportunity for a formal partnership that can have immediate and lasting effects for our community. Ah, you turned it off.
I did. Is it working now? It might need to be anchored down. So let me just click on the
Actually,
screen.
can I just do
Yeah,
this?
sure.
All right, great.
You may.
So that opportunity that we propose is the in-kind contribution of the currently vacant Taft School as the next home of the Greene County Family Justice Center. While Taft is no longer used or usable as a school or administrative facility for the district, we believe it can be readily adapted to serve our community again as the Greene County Family Justice Center. So in support of the proposal, I'm going to give you just a really brief overview of the Family Justice Center, a overview of why we believe SPS is an important partner, and a quick virtual tour of our vision for Taft. So the Family Justice Center is truly a collaborative model. It brings together private and public agencies co-located so that we can provide services to victims that are victim-centered. And what I mean by victim-centered is the victim indicates and chooses what services they want to receive in a confidential way that can then be coordinated for them, providing services to primarily victims of domestic violence as well as associated child abuse and sexual abuse. It's a model that first started in San Diego with the San Diego County Prosecutor in 2002 and has been recognized as a best practice by the Department of Justice. In under a year after receiving the seed funding from Greene County based on the recent sales tax passage, we were able to open the center on October 1st of 2019, and we were the first family justice center in the country to receive affiliation with the Alliance for Hope on the day of our opening. So as you look at these statistics with regard to domestic violence in our community, they're alarming. Even more alarming is that half the homicides in 2017 were related to domestic abuse. The decision to open the Greene County Family Justice Center was driven by our desire to do things better. We already collaborated amongst our many agencies, but we needed to leave our silos, become co-located, and work together in a coordinated approach. Domestic violence is about power and control. For the domestic violence victim, considering leaving his or her abuser is a very difficult choice. The personal, emotional, family, and economic circumstances of their individual situations too often make staying with the abuser appear to be the safest and best choice. When, however, community resources are co-located, victims are empowered to overcome those obstacles and are supported so that they can maintain their own security and autonomy. In addition, there are documented community safety benefits. In San Diego, they saw a 90% reduction in their domestic homicide rate. In Louisiana, where they implemented it, they had the lowest death rating recorded. As victims seek services earlier, we're also able to reduce the severity of the assaults, and more offenders are held accountable. As you know from the timeline we gave you in our written proposal, this center was conceived and planned and staffed through community collaboration and opened in just under a year from that collaboration. While the number of services and clients we've served in the short 7 months since we've been open are impressive, they don't really speak to how effective this collaborative model is. Together, we are truly greater than the sum of our parts. Each of the agencies you see here, except for the Child Advocacy Center, are on site now, and we have an external linkage with the Child Advocacy Center. We've seen in this short time how working together, even though we're from different domains, work in different areas, how we each make each other better by being together. And as you saw in the proposal, the victims, the survivors who have come are also recognizing that and finding it a welcoming and helpful place to be served. So why partner with Springfield Public Schools? Children who witness domestic violence are not just witnesses, they're victims. And if we just extrapolate from the national numbers of 1 in 9 children being exposed to domestic violence every year, that conservatively means that 1,000 students more than the enrollment of my alma mater at Kickapoo of 1,700. So 2,700 students every year are exposed to domestic violence, conservatively. And we know that most domestic violence goes unreported. In their lifetime, 40%
of children are exposed to domestic violence. But we also know that strong families build strong schools, and schools are a natural partner to breaking the generational cycle. So this opportunity we have today with TEFT, I really believe, is an opportunity for partnership with immediate impact. And before I take you on the tour, I just want to very briefly touch on how domestic violence affects children. There is an intersection between domestic violence and adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs, that you may have heard of. And we know based on a national study that there's a 95% probability that a child who experienced domestic violence has more than one of these adverse childhood experiences. One study showed at least 36% will have 4 of the 10, and an Alaskan study showed that 74% will have more than 4 ACEs. Adverse childhood experiences are 10 different traumatic events that may occur in a child's life. And as you look at them here on the screen, you can see that it's intuitive that if you experience any domestic violence, you're definitely experiencing more than one of these. The mother treated violently, substance abuse, separation, an incarcerated relative. And the reason that's important is that if you have 3 or more ACEs, you're more than 4 more times likely to have developmental delays because the child is in survival mode, not thinking. They're not going to function as well in school, which means they also won't become productive members of our community, or there will be a negative effect upon that. So, to talk about the present of the Child Advocacy, or the Family Justice Center, we're located in the courthouse. We're currently prosecutor-led and county and partner funded. We have a pending 501c3 application for the Greene County Family Justice Center Alliance, a nonprofit designed to support our efforts and perhaps eventually to take over the operation down the road. Our current space is temporary. It'll eventually be courtrooms, but you can see here that it's located in what used to be the secretarial area of the prosecutor's office before I was kicked out of the courthouse. And then we have a few offices around, and you can see this doesn't look like an office building. It doesn't look like a government office. It's designed to treat victims and serve them in a trauma-informed way. Our time is limited, as I said, and we're looking to expand our funding. The seed funding from the county is just that, seed funding. We eventually will begin fundraising, and we'll also seek Victims of Crime Act federal grants. That's important to you because there's a 20% grant match requirement when you evoke a grant recipient. And the in-kind use of TEFT could be used as part of that match because partner-supplied premises can. Our dream is a campus, much like they have in Milwaukee or Fort Worth or other places, where we really bring together not just 10 agencies or 11 agencies, but 25 agencies that serve this population. But we know we have to move from the courthouse, where we only have about 3,000 square feet. We've looked at our interim location needs, and basically what they are is more space, about triple the space, still in an open format that will facilitate the collaboration and trauma-informed service that we provide. And we believe TEFT meets that need. And as you know from recent history, the school board has the legal authority to sell, transfer, or lease real property not required for operations to a community group such as the Greene County Family Justice Center Alliance, or the county, or the city. So let's look at TEFT just real quickly. I'll take you on this virtual tour. It's about 20,000 square feet. As you know, is most recently administrative offices, and the park board leases the gym next door, which is an excellent opportunity for future partnership. It's also centrally located, easily accessible by Chestnut and Glenstone Avenue on the Division bus route, and just over 1 mile from the courthouse with sufficient parking. So as we look at TEFT here, the main entry would be on the bottom of this slide, the old main entry, and the main entry used by the school is actually at the top there. Located here, that's what it looks like there. You can see the parking. It still has a multi-purpose room, which would make an excellent waiting area, cafe-style waiting area in a secure area. It could also be used as a community room for the surrounding community there. That's what that looks like today. Just inside the front area, as you would pass reception, there's an area that may have been an office. I'm not sure what its prior use was, but it has a window. If you've been to Harmony House, you know how their child care center is set up with that window so parents can see their child, and that space would serve that well in our vision. Across the hall is an open space. It would be an excellent space to locate our volunteers and staff who are coming to work in the center. In the back, where the boiler room used to be, there's a small classroom with a separate door, which would be an excellent way for us potentially to expand by having sexual assault nurse examiners be able to come and perform forensic exams there at the center. There's also another small courtroom or classroom that makes an excellent boardroom or training facility. So if you move up to the first floor, and it requires to install a wheelchair ramp for a very short staircase there, this is where the services would be provided. And you can see there to the left, well, actually in the middle, an area for people to wait as they're being served. To the bottom corner there, one of the large classrooms would be, this is some of the few modifications that we believe would be necessary to subdivide it for intake rooms, much like you saw in our current location. And you can see that the space is conducive to that and in good shape. There's also shelf space for additional expansion. And then we move to the second floor, and the second floor is where we would locate the partners in these same large classrooms that you see on the first floor. And as we envision it, you would have a law enforcement group where the entire Springfield Police Department Domestic Violence Unit would be, along with the Greene County Sheriff's Deputy. Above that, a space for navigators, the people who guide our clients through their services. To the upper right, a legal group for the prosecutor's office's representatives and legal services of Southern Missouri. And then below, the social services group, designed so that cops who want to talk to prosecutors have to cross the floor, right? And we meet in the middle. And navigators who want to talk to social workers have to cross the floor to talk to them. And with a space for us all to work together in the middle. And I know my time is limited, so I'll go through those quickly. So as we looked at those identified needs from our early planning, Taft really meets it. And as we looked at Taft, we don't see a 100-year-old school building that's no longer usable as a school or administrative offices. Instead, we see an opportunity. The opportunity to continue and expand our operation, to do so in a building that can almost immediately be put to use for this purpose with little modification, which means we won't divert resources from the services we're providing to those that we serve. And an opportunity to build our partnership with Springfield Public Schools. While this facility presents an immediate and very impactful partnership, as with other family justice centers, we believe there are opportunities to partner in terms of programming, whether that's providing classroom instruction to children who are between schools and between homes, and other ways to do that. It also presents opportunities to expand our partnerships with this park board, our neighbor on the property, as well as the Boys and Girls Club just down the street. In the past, Taft was a place that inspired hope for the children who went there. In the future, we believe it can inspire hope for these survivors that we serve. So, we ask that you favorably consider our request and ask that you authorize the administration to develop a plan with the county, the city, and the Family Justice Center Board for the in-kind contribution of the school to become the home of the Greene County Family Justice Center. And as I mentioned, we've applied for our 501c3 status, but haven't received it yet, probably because of the government shutdown that we all know occurred. But we expect it sometime soon. And what we want to explore with the administration is the best way to make that transaction work. And as I said earlier, the statute allows a transfer either to a government entity, such as the county, which would be funding the maintenance and operation of the facility within our current budget, or some kind of combination of transfer to the county and city, or directly to the 501c3, depending on the timing of how that works. We believe all those present excellent opportunities for this partnership to go forward so that we can expand those services, which I believe will also benefit the children who attend Springfield Public Schools and their families.
you, Dan. Any questions or comments
Oh,
in
yeah.
response?
Lots of comments.
All right.
But where do you want to start? Do you
You're-
want us to?
I want to start at that end of the table is where I want to start.
A couple things. Whenever we talk about as a board in this kind of an in-kind or thing, we're talking about taxpayers' dollars. So, we certainly need to think very carefully and very seriously about something like that. However, one thing that this board established several years ago is we were looking at surplus properties and how we were going to handle the surplus properties. One of the big thing is how will whoever purchases or whatever we do with this property, how does it give back to our community? That was like our number one priority. So when I'm looking and hearing this and talking about this, and I will share with fellow board members and audience that I guess it was it spring of 2018 when we had the 2-day planning session regarding family justice?
Yes, in
Okay.
April.
So I had the opportunity to attend that 2-day planning session, and it was very interesting to me that there were so many members of our community that came forward that spent 2 days, a very valuable time, in talking about this and how this might become a reality for Springfield. Because we had the gentleman there, you had the gentleman there from San Diego.
Right, Casey Gwynn, the prosecutor.
Yes. And we heard from survivors of domestic violence, and it was just an extremely powerful 2 days. And I see some familiar faces that are here. And, if this could happen for Springfield, it would be an amazing thing. So it did happen. But it was interesting because one of the things he said is, you will quickly outgrow. You will need to look for your community to provide larger facility. And so here we are looking at this potential larger facility. So, and then as you said about Teft, that it was a place of hope. As a Springfield native, my mother went to elementary at Teft, and her 4 sisters and her brother. So it was a place of hope for many of the kids that are now gone and of our community. So for me as a board member, I can't think of any better way for us to, when I talk about my mom, I'll get this. So when, in looking at what we can do as a school board to give back to our community that provided the funding for building that building a number of years ago, I think this is just to me, would be delightful for us to do this. And I know not everyone may agree with that, and I also had an office in that building for 5 years, so I basically lived there for 5 years, and I know that building, and I kind of had to laugh when you said about the boiler room, because that was kind of a spooky place to be, but that's where we went when there were storm warnings, so I know that boiler room. But I just think this is awesome, and to think that we could provide this facility for our community where our victims could go to have so many services in one place and not have to travel to a number of different offices is just very exciting for me. So obviously you all know how I feel about this, but I think it's awesome. I appreciate your taking the time and coming and sharing this with us. So that's about all I have to say.
Well, thank you, Forrest. Who's next?
Did you call
Forrest. Anyone on this side of the table?
I mean, my sense is that this is the ideal sort of integration of public and private, and I can't think of a higher use for the property. One question, does it matter in terms of availability of the federal funds if the match is to the 501c3 or to the public entity? So would that affect the timing in terms of the match? Does my question make sense?
It might. So the thing about VOCA funds is they only become available every 2 years to apply for, and it's about, we expect that RFP will come out here at the end of April or early May. And so the timing may be that the Family Justice Center Alliance may not be able to apply in this cycle, but in the next cycle. But as we move towards that, our partners, for example, the prosecutor's office may apply for part. The Victor Center, Harmony House, or Legal Services may apply for parts. How that'll affect things that might affect the building, we won't know exactly yet until that RFP comes out and we analyze it. But it can pay for things that not just provide direct services, but make those direct services available. Things like security systems, security guards, a van to transport people to the courthouse, all of those kinds of things. It can't buy a building or build a building, but it can do things to improve a building. And so some of that may be delayed and have to be phased in depending on the timing. We'll just have to see how that works.
Yeah, that motivated my question. I just want to make sure that we maximize the value of the maps, that we do it in the right way for the community.
And speaking of that, so one of the things we've suggested is potentially not just an outright in-kind contribution, but perhaps a long-term lease with an option to obtain. That would maximize, if your only goal were to maximize the VOCA match, that would likely maximize that because you would have the fair market rental value for the direct services spaces going forward.
I have just a couple comments, a couple questions. Number one, I appreciate you coming and bringing us a vision that, as obviously your steering committee and board has been very thoughtful and clearly articulating a vision with the specifics, so thank you. Having been a part of our community leadership for, I see Brandy, for many years, one thing that we talk about is that we have identified ourselves as a community that is program rich and systems poor. And this is yet again another great example of bringing all of these efforts together for a one-stop shop of services. And we see that with One Door or Prosper SPS or Prosper Springfield, or whether it be Fairbanks with the Northwest projects. But our community has been committed more recently to putting more systems in place to take care of whoever the audience may be. So I think this just, first of all, I commend you all for what you're already doing. It just affirms the great need. And then it gives us something to consider tonight as we deliberate and process through it. I do have a question in regards to the proximity of the courthouse, because I don't know if that is, I know it's in the courthouse now and they're wanting to push it out, and I've seen some of the other presentations that you've given about how you've made it friendly for those to come in and that type of thing. But is the TEF building close enough to the courthouse to meet the needs of people?
It is,
Or is it actually better to be a little bit away from the courthouse? You know, I don't know what the pros and cons are right now for it being in the courthouse for
Right.
you all.
So it's not ideal to be in a courthouse because it's just not a very trauma-informed environment. However, in New York State, all of them are located in courthouses. Taft is really about perfect. 1.3 miles, you can walk to it in the same amount of time you can take the bus to it,
Okay.
about 20 minutes. When you look around the footprint of the courthouse, there's really not any other structures or buildings that exist that would meet the size requirements, be on a bus route, be close to major roads, and yet be that close. Because when we may move people between the courthouse and the Family Justice Center for orders of protection and things like that. So it's important to be close, but I really don't know that you could get any closer based on our footprint.
Okay. And you all would obviously have to provide security and that type of thing.
Right.
That goes along with your services.
Yes, that's right, because the one benefit of the courthouse, right, is it's a secure building.
right.
We'll be leaving a secure building where we'll have basically a platoon of law enforcement officers working, but we would also want independent security as well.
Yeah. Thank you.
Anything else? If you all like, what Alina and I can do is work in the interim and come back next meeting with something that we can consider for a vote, if that's all right.
Excellent.
Thank you very much for your
Thank
time.
you.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Item 7.02 is next on the agenda, and that's an information presentation regarding the status of projects authorized by the April 2, 2019 bond issue, also known as Proposition S. Executive Director of Operations Travis Shaw will present. Welcome, Travis.
Thank you. Okay, well, good evening. This is a presentation that I've looked forward to giving for quite some time, and I know you have for longer than I even have. So tonight what we're going to do is walk you through where we are to this day, and it goes back to about a year ago. I'll give you a timeline here in a second, but tonight what I want to do is present to you a review of our facility planning, the process and timeline that we've been working on for the secure entrances. Sunshine, Delaware, the Southwest Early Childhood Center, and then Boyd, because we've started doing a little bit of work on that as we've acquired land for that, and then some next steps moving forward. So going back to May of 2018, this is when you all voted to form the Community Task Force on facilities. And that work began in June, if you remember. They met twice a month. As we know, that went on for 5 months. And in August, the task force reviewed pricing that was provided by architects. In October, they presented to you the recommendation for facilities and the ballot language. In November, you approved that ballot issue, and also at that same meeting approved fees for architects to begin design work. And in December of 18, they began working on that for those major projects as well as the secure entrances. And then April, as we all know, the community voted to approve the ballot, and here we are today. So you all have in front of you the draft project sequencing plan at that time. One of the things that I want to point out is that all of these projects that were presented in this plan in November are on track. And so a few things to bring to your attention. I'm going to be pointing back here, but if you're looking at your sheet, the yellow projects here, this is the design work for the secure entrances, the early childhood building, Delaware, and Sunshine. Also the red represented the acquiring of land at Boyd. And so all of those are on track and moving forward, and you will see that very soon we will also begin the design work for Jarrett, Hillcrest, and Boyd. And so moving right along, it's not going to be long, we're going to have 6 projects either under construction or design at the same time. So,
Wow, it's going to be tough to be you.
no, it's great to be me. So the design process, just want to highlight a few things. So on these major projects, if you remember, the architects did their feasibility study a long time ago to give us pricing to be able to provide to the task force. And so they did that. They looked at the facility program for each of these projects. We began to early on meet with principals and district sped staff throughout this schematic design piece. And so the schematic design piece was reviewing our major goals that we wanted to achieve, getting that information from the district leaders that were in those meetings. A lot of dreaming went on. I'll still remember Missy Riley at our first meeting. She just was in awe, and she was like, we've been dreaming about this, we've been dreaming about this, and this may come true because this was before the bond passed, and so it's all a reality now, and so the dreams have come true. And we looked at rough concepts of design during that schematic piece. We then go into design development, and that's when we brought in our teachers and staff and had interactive teacher input. And so what I mean by that was we brought them in. It looked a little different for early childhood because we brought in stakeholders from all of our sites, Shining Stars, Shady Dell, our satellite classrooms, and brought staff in to gather feedback from them on where that process was. So we were still in that early design development. We had floor plans, we had basic schemes to be able to show them. Here's, what do you think about this? What do you think about the plan? We talked about the program. We got feedback from them. For Delaware and Sunshine, architects came in and actually had time set up in a location within their building, and staff came in through their lunch hour, and they spent time allowing them to look at everything, place their preferences on boards, and got a lot of great feedback, not only from the administration, but the teachers involved in those buildings.
So
Yeah,
I just
Lena?
want to clarify what you're saying, because I'm not an architect. That the feasibility study was for some conceptual designs.
Correct.
This much square foot to give pricing information, to give to the task force so that they could review and make the best recommendation they could based on that data.
Right.
And then moving forward to schematic design, looking more specifically at these projects, the ones that were identified to be on this bond.
Correct.
And now you're telling us that in the design development, that for the early childhood, that you've been meeting with Missy, the Campbell principal, the Shiny
Correct.
Stars. So
Tammy
they've been
Flowers,
giving-
Christy Davis,
they've been
Missy
giving
Riley.
you or
As a group.
who?
They've all been in those
Okay.
meetings with our architects and myself. IT's been involved. when we had those with the early childhood, we met weekly for probably 3 or 4 months solid, and continuing to progress through those plans. And then, once we got to that point where we had input from leadership, we knew, okay, we need to then get additional feedback. I also sat down with Dr. Jungman and Carol and said, here's where we are.
Sure.
You know, if you've got any heartburn on these things, we need to know that now, those kind of meetings. Sat down with the teachers to get their feedback and input, because it's one thing for administration to say, here's what we think we need, but it's also even just as important to get the people that are in those classrooms to say, you know, here's where we are with the program.
Yeah.
And what do you think? What are your thoughts? What do you like? What do you don't like? And we took all of that feedback, the architects took all that feedback, and then continued to move forward through that progress.
Okay, and then with Delaware and Sunshine, which are a little bit different than early childhood, I understand that you've been meeting with the building principal and then a few teachers, or what does that process look like?
It's primarily been the building principal,
Okay.
district sped staff, mostly because when we met with those, we met both for Delaware and Sunshine at the same time because it was the same architectural firm.
Okay.
And so we had district sped staff there to provide that input on that side. And then again, once we got to that point in the design development, we said, okay, now we need to take this and provide this information to the teachers to get their feedback. And so at Sunshine, we met in a very small little almost teacher's lounge lunchroom area where they were coming in and they were throwing their food in the microwave and warming up and sitting down and doing the things on the interactive board. Delaware, we were in the library and the same process was there. And so it allowed them that feedback. And, you know, a lot of times when you can potentially get too many voices at the table,
Sure.
but the principals knew their staff and said, you know what, we don't have a large staff. And so we want to provide them that opportunity to come in with our preschool, because we have campuses all over. We wanted to make sure that we had representatives from each of those campuses come in to provide that feedback. So.
Okay, thank you. for
Yeah,
giving me a
Charles?
bigger picture. Yeah.
Can you give us an illustration of something that maybe came from teachers or staff that you didn't see coming? It's like, oh, that's a good idea. Did something change on the basis of that staff input?
For early childhood, there was a lot of conversation around restrooms within the classroom, because we have, and you'll see on the floor plans, there's restrooms in the classroom, and what's that look like? Kid height sinks compared to adult height sinks, and those kind of things. And so it was simple things like that. It was, you know, maybe not so much that I didn't think about, but their feedback on, you know, where does carpet need to be placed within these classrooms, and how much carpet, and different things like that. And so some of that's preference. But, you know, I think the leadership that was involved really knew their staff, and so we were able to be in a really good direction moving forward. So there's nothing really comes off the top of my head that said, wow, we missed the mark on this, and they brought something up that we weren't thinking about. So
I guess that you probably got affirmation on
there was a lot of
things, too.
affirmation, yeah, certainly.
And when you say
And-
leadership, you mean building principals who
Yes.
are in on
Yeah.
the conversation
Yes.
early, that
Yes.
have already heard from their staff?
Right.
Maybe.
Right.
Okay.
I was the only person from executive leadership that was involved in these weekly meetings. And it was essentially more to be, well, as I told Missy when she said, you know, our dreams may finally come true. And I said, well, you know why I'm in the table is because I'm the dream squasher when it gets to the point where I have to, you know, deal with budgets and things like that.
Yeah.
But I sat back and really didn't give a lot of input. I mean, they looked to me for different district decisions that need to be made, as well as IT. But it's really been a very much early childhood, Sunshine, Delaware-driven approach. So.
And the comment I'll make, that I'll just quickly make, I think it's very effective. I think it's a great idea that the teachers were allowed to come in, not just have a small group of just a few selected teachers to serve, to provide input, but that they were all allowed to come in on their lunchtime or maybe their work time or whatever, to come in and be able to give that input. So
Right.
you heard from everyone
Right.
in those buildings. And that, I think that's unique. I'm not
Yeah.
sure we've ever had
Yeah.
that kind of input.
And that
before.
was a recommendation by the principals at Delaware and Sunshine, that they felt comfortable with that much input, because like I said, sometimes if you get too much input, then
Oh, yeah.
you get a lot of opinions and you know, get at a standstill.
But
And
kudos to those leaders for their trust and for setting the stage.
Absolutely.
That's great. Because that was probably one of the number one questions I think I heard from staff during the bond discussions.
Yeah.
And the campaign was from teachers was, you know, how much input will we get into what our new building's gonna look like? And so I think that's one thing. And those, our staff that served on the task force was, okay, how much input will we get on this? And so that is a question that I was going to ask, but you already answered it.
Yeah.
But I'm glad we had this discussion, because I hope that gets out and about, that there was a
And the
tremendous
architects
input.
have done a great job in moving the process forward the way it needs to be
Yes,
moved.
yeah.
They've done it enough,
Yeah.
so
'Cause
they.
teachers are teachers and architects are architects, but
That's
when you
right.
can bring the two together to, to have some input, that's great,
Mm-hmm.
so.
So that's kind of the process of the major projects. Secure entrances was a little bit different because that came on a little bit after we got architects for the major projects, but architects went out, did site evaluations, they did project cost estimates from, after dealing with those site evaluations, got into schematic design. That's when we made sure that we had communication with our principals. There were some that became much more involved than others due to the site. The main goal, obviously, when we did these secure entrances, was to get the secure entrance taken care of, and then we dealt with whatever issues that came up within the office. And then, obviously, into the design development, and then some of the projects are actually out to bid, which I'll show the timeline here in a second, but all of them are at least in the construction document phase, so.
Travis, how did you sequence, since the secure entrances run through May of 2021, how did you sequence those, just sort of?
So let me go on to, I think it's on the slide coming up, but the project specifics, if you remember, we wanted to make sure that we had access control points. We wanted double secure entrances to where there were 2 checkpoints prior to getting into the buildings. We also had intercoms, there was going to be cameras, electronic locking controls. A big piece of this in some of the buildings was we had to move the proximity of where the staff was looking at the doors because we wanted that face-to-face visual and better line of sight when they came forward. So with that in mind, again, just the reemphasis of our sites, $7.8 million. There's 31 sites and 33 secure entrances, 2 at Parkview and 2 at Central. So this was the bid release timeline, and so this references your question, Charles, that how did we do this? Well, these are divided up by architect, and so the primary sites that rose to the top of what we wanted to go out first were our secondary sites. So our high school and alternative school site was first, then all of our middle schools, and then it went down the line through elementary. And so after gaining feedback from members of the Springfield Contractors Association and said, okay, in your mind, what should this look like? And we got feedback from them, and they said, you know what? With these projects being the way they are and as small as they are and grouped the way they are, if you bid this out about every 10 days, it's going to give everybody who wants an opportunity to bid on all of these projects. If a small general contractor wants to bid on everything, 10 days apart, they'll have that opportunity to do so. If they want to pick and choose, they can. And so I sent an email out to, it was at least 10 different contractors within Springfield, said, here's our schedule, here's the sites, want you to have this ahead of time. Obviously, this was after the bond passed. But wanted to get that out to them right away because with the bond, the election being on the 2nd, I mean, we had 10 days before. Of course, the architects knew this was the timeline, and they were prepared and ready to do that, so.
Work demand, I mean, work demand is part of it too.
Yes. So we've got two groups of projects, packages that are already out to bid, so.
Awesome.
So the work will follow that same sequence from the bid.
Right, they will go, it'll be, generally speaking, 3 to 4 week bid opening, or bid out on the street time frame. Then they come back, get, recommend for the board for contract, and then start construction. So yes, they will, we actually in the bid specs for the secure entrances at Parkview Central and Studi, the substantial completion date was August 1st. They
Can you
plan
go
to
back
be,
to that slide, Charles?
they plan to be done with those projects within about 2 months.
So some of these will start before others and could take longer than others.
Absolutely.
So you really can't go, oh, because Parkview started their two first, they should be.
That's correct. You
finished
look
first.
at
You can't say
Twain
that.
is one of our last projects to go out to bid on June 3rd.
But
And
it's-
if you remember, that's
It already
a
has it.
substantial addition to that building. It's the most expensive one that we have in the project list. And so we know that this work is going into the fall. We understand that. And so that's one of the biggest questions. So what do we do about our office space? Well, we're going to have the architects, the general contractors, our project coordinators, we're all going to be communicating with building leadership to say, okay, here's what this is going to look like, here's what we need from you, we need to move this here, or think of a different location. I've been involved in a previous project in another district where we lost our main entrance to our high school for 5 months.
Yeah.
And we simply had to move it to a different location of the building, put the buzzer system there. It worked. You just make those adjustments for the betterment of all of the projects, so.
Go to the pictures.
Okay, so let's talk about Sunshine. This is the current site at Sunshine, the aerial view, just to give you an idea of what property we currently own. And you'll, as you probably know, the entrance to this building is right here, and everybody comes through this part all the way to the front office, which is on this part of the building. So,
I was looking at that screen and couldn't see the red dot.
yeah, it's not
It's 'cause you were
reflective,
pointing.
Alina, sorry. It'd be cool if we had that.
Yeah.
So every one of these projects went off of specific programming, and this programming is for a 350 capacity building, so this programming will look very similar to that of Delaware because it's the same capacity. One of the things to notice is that the addition at Sunshine will be about 30,000 square feet. The current is just under 30,000, so this school itself will double in size from what we renovate to the new build. You'll notice that we've got the storm shelter in there on the gymnasium. You'll also notice that there is a library on each one of these.
Thank you.
So I want to point that out as that was a big question through the bond presentations.
Can you say that again? What did you just say?
There will be a library in every one of the buildings. So this is an aerial of the Sunshine Elementary. So some things I want to point out. One of the major problems we have with Sunshine right now is car queuing. And so you will notice that the white lines, and again, the dot will be up on this screen, the queuing will come in off Jefferson, and the car queuing will come all the way around here and drop students off right here and then exit out. We should not have any problem with the additional students coming over in more cars, and we'll get all those cars off of Jefferson. We also will have increased busing because of the students coming over from Portland, and so we have great bus queuing as well right here. The new entrance to the school will be on this west side facing Jefferson. I'll show you a great picture of that here in a second. So here's another aerial shot. You'll get an idea where the buses, find my dot, buses line up here. Cars you can see are circling around here. Now, one thing to note is that during the school day, this will be gated off, and so this will all be play space over here. The playground equipment is not shown, but it will be shown. I mean, obviously will be there. We have a walking track because that'll all be closed off during the day. And notice all of the trees that we are leaving at Sunshine Elementary that are not going away. So I know that that was something that's been commented on several times. So a look at the floor plan of Sunshine Elementary, you'll see the dotted section, that represents the current school. So that's going to be the renovated space. And then everything to the north of that is new. Again, the front entrance of the building is right in here. This will be where students come in from parent drop-off. And notice on this side, we've got a lot of community space. We have the gym and the stage. We've got a community room for groups that come in and use the facility. We're able to block all of this space off, and we would have a block off here to where if all we needed was to use, somebody needed to use the cafeteria space, they're not going to go anywhere besides this area, and they can utilize that space. And or if they want to use the gym space, we can block everywhere else off and keep, you know, the majority of people within that area. You'll notice that we've got the classrooms to accommodate 350 students. Library stays where it is, but obviously all of this area is going to be renovated. We do have a few collaborative spaces. We have a space here, we have a space here, and we have a space up here, much like what we have at Harrison Elementary, how there's collaborative space in the middle of where, in the areas where we have classrooms so that they can utilize that when needed. Art is down here. and takes up what was the APR, the all-purpose room, kitchen, cafeteria area.
That's nice.
So this is a view from Jefferson. I think the architects have done a fantastic job of blending the old with the new, and it fits great within the neighborhood, which is always a focus. We don't want this building that's just going to stand out and look odd, but it fits great within the landscape. And then you've got a view from where the parents would be dropping off students, and also where your gymnasium entrance would be. Okay, so let's move to Delaware. Delaware, as you know, sits, and this is a campus there. The front entrance to Delaware is right here, coming off of Delaware. And all the parking for Delaware is down here. It all goes one way, so we have a lot of busing issues because, as you know, we transfer a lot of students to Delaware via bus. Programming for Delaware looks almost identical, other than the capacity, or the new building, I'm sorry, the new building at Delaware will be 67,000 square feet, so a little bit larger than what Sunshine was, primarily due to the programming. We've got a lot of different programming that's there, and so we need a little bit more space to accommodate. So a view from Delaware above, again, you will notice the car queuing in the white. And right now, the current car queuing at Delaware is on the street, so this is a much improved scheme to be able to get that. Because we have a lot of buses, we're actually getting the buses completely separate away from the cars, which is a fantastic idea, and it allows safer entrance and exit. And then you've got additional parking on both sides. This doesn't quite show all of the property to the north, so I'll show you that in a second, and you'll get a better idea. But on this one, the entrance to the school is right here. So another aerial, you can see the buses now over here queued up, cars coming in this way, and then we'll exit out. And main entrance there, but you'll notice we have a lot of space back here for green space and play space. It's a large campus, we're very blessed. This parking lot does not belong to us. So this diagram is a little bit more difficult to read. I apologize for how we're getting through some things I want to point out. The darker brown, because of all of the extensive special education programming, is represented in the darker brown. And so these were placed to where they were with each of our neighborhood or classroom neighborhoods. So we had the inclusiveness, but also centrally located enough to where they would be able to do their programming and their collaboration as needed. This school has collaboration space, again, in each of the neighborhoods. As you'll see, again, much like Harrison, all of the community space in this building is coming in from the front. So you've got the gym, the stage, you've got cafeteria, library in the center of the building, art, community room as well, main office area. So it's laid out really, really nice to be able to, a person could stand pretty centrally located and see most of the building at one time, and I know that's something that principals really like to be able to do. So this is a view if you were driving northbound from the south on Delaware that you would see. Again, this building we wanted to fit within that neighborhood, and if you think about the neighborhood, it's a very much a 1950s neighborhood, and so when you look at the roof lines, pitch lines, and textures, again, these are still not quite done with design development, so we'll probably see a few tweaks here and there, but for the most part, again, it's not this big monstrosity of a building. It fits great on the site and fits well within that neighborhood. Southwest Early Childhood Center. So this is an aerial view of our Carver site. So Carver Middle School sits right here. This is parking for them, our bus transportation area here, and so coming in off Battlefield comes in this direction. Buses are parked out here. So the new early childhood will set right over here. These are trees right now. There will be still a lot of trees back here, so I apologize if those have to go, but I'll talk about some of the site limitations we've got out here. And then the car loop, when you see the next one of the pictures, will come in around this area. So it all sits over here. We would be able to divert Carver traffic this direction, early childhood traffic that direction. Early childhood program is not as extensive because there's not as many things within an early childhood building, but you can kind of get an idea. The new building is expected to be 36,000 square feet, 12 classrooms, 240 capacity. And so you see the size of classrooms. Classroom spaces would be definitely larger in pre-K because there's also some other things within the classroom that are involved in that. The storm shelter in this building is actually in the art music location rather than a gym based on the design. And so it worked out really well for it to be there. So here's the concept from above. Again, you'll see the Carver Middle School located up here and their parking. So traffic would come in here, cars would loop around this way. A bus loop is here. Now, that decision has not been made that we're going to provide transportation, but we don't want to build this thing and not put that there and then have to go back and do it later. So it makes sense to do it right now with all of the excavating that will have to take place. And then generous parking. And so this, what I want to point out on this drawing, you see all the lines close together here. That represents a significant fall in elevation. This building actually falls 30 feet from front to back due to the site. And so your architect friend on the board would tell you that that creates certain challenges, and we had a lot of conversations about some of those things. And so the design is done around the proximity of the land. And so it doesn't keep us from being able to do it, but it does create some challenges. Now, one thing that we were pleased with is we were told there would be a lot of rock out there, which there is, but we were able to position this to where we were missing the majority of all of that rock, and we're not going to have to go in and spend a lot of time getting rid of the rock that's in there. The back loop around, if you've noticed that, that's actually fire lane that has to be there by code. So, but there would be fence behind there, and that would then be able to serve with gates on both sides as hard space for kids preschool age to trike, to walk, those kind of things. So it would give additional space.
So obviously play area outside is what you're saying?
Yeah, the play area, this is all green space play area as well as, again, the track area to where they could use that.
And there's not a concern of the kids falling, or, I mean, I understand the architectural concerns.
No,
but
all of
as
that
far
would
as
be
just
flat.
this-
There's going to be
okay.
a lot of fill, good question. There's a
Okay.
lot of fill that's being brought in, which affects a little bit of the cost. But yes, that's all flat space. The part that I talked about.
Guess where they're going on snow days?
Yeah, they did make the comment that that space right there would be a great sledding hill. But no, Lena, all of this space here is flat. So they would have all flat space for play.
And then Carver, because I was at the Carver PTA presentation, a couple months ago or whatever, but Carver, even though they're losing some of their green space, they still have, there's a lot of,
There's a tremendous amount of space down there.
so they're not losing at all.
No, I don't know that they would probably even use much of that over there at all. It's primarily to the north of where their property sits. So there's a lot of space between the backside where the library sits at Carver and where that creek runs, that they do a lot of things with Stream Team and, yep, the watershed. So this is the top level. Because of the contour of the land, we've got a larger main level, and then we actually will have a lower level I'll show you in a second. But the blue represents the classrooms. There's 8 classrooms on the main level. The red, as you come in, is the office area. They've got some activity space, which is really important for pre-K kids because of all of the energy that they have to be able to, when there's limitations with weather, they have places to do some things. This is an interactive STEM water space that was from the recommendations of the pre-K team that said, we've seen this is amazing, we need to have this if we can, and so we've been able to incorporate that in. There are restrooms in every 2 classrooms, 2 that they can use from both sides. That's another big thing that the less you have pre-K kids going out to facilities, the better. So when you look at the lower level, you'll see in whatever this color is here, that's our storm shelter, which is also the music art area, and so you'll see restrooms there. This is actually exterior restrooms, again, something that I would have never thought about, but pre-K said, you know what, when we're out at recess, we need a place for these kids to go to the bathroom, so they're not always going inside, and so these actually open to the exterior.
That's a good idea.
PE space down here, activity space, again, 4 more classrooms. There are 3 sets of stairs, one on each end, one in the middle, as well as an elevator in the middle for that need. So one thing you probably don't see is a cafeteria. At pre-K, everything we do is either breakfast in the classroom or lunch in the classroom. So we have a serving kitchen, and they really want those kids to learn to do those things in structured areas. They have a lot of difficulty dealing with that big open space, and they're actually looking at different ways to potentially, not just food on tray, but potential family-style type meals that a lot of early childhood have done. So working some of the details out with that. We haven't gotten to that point yet. But all the food would be prepared at Carver and brought over and served out of the early childhood kitchen. And this is just a rendering of what the front would look like coming up to that space. So fits great within that environment of being this wide open nature space that we've got, and the stream and the creek down there. So an exciting opportunity for our pre-K kids, obviously, and our pre-K staff. So, and finally, Boyd Elementary. Again, not a lot to show on Boyd at this time, but wanted to give you, this is again the current Boyd. As a reminder, this is 1.49 acres, so a very, very small site, as you all know. And the Boyd programming is very similar to Delaware and Sunshine, a little bit smaller simply because it's a 300 capacity facility. It does have some pre-K in it, as you probably remember, the storm shelter and the gymnasium. This total square footage of building will be almost 53,000 square feet. And this is just a reminder, this is the property that we have acquired and are in the process of finalizing. The total space is 3.1 acres, so more than double what we currently have. We're in the process of having meetings with the city to deal with this partial closing of Sherman, which would help us tremendously. We do even own this little parking space here. This is the current Berry building, if you remember, but these are the properties here that we were able to purchase. So we would have all of that space. There has to be a turnaround for fire reasons, and so we wouldn't be able to completely close off that entire street of North Sherman. And that design, as I remind you, starts in June, so we'll be moving very quickly on getting all of that in place. We don't have an architect hired for that project yet, so that will be coming soon for that recommendation. So next steps. This next month.
Can we back up for just a minute?
You bet.
I just have just a question. When you said we're going to start that in June and we don't have an architect yet, so to me, that's coming fairly quickly. Is one of the criteria when we're selecting architects that you'd be able to start in June, or could we potentially have to move that back if the architect we want wasn't available to start in June? You see what I'm saying? That seems like a real short time.
So the timeline on Boyd, if you look at your sheet, the timeline for Boyd is we start design in June. And then construction, if we started in June with it being an 8-month timeline, would actually start in February, which means finishing in the middle of the year. So we have that flexibility that based on if we went to an architect and said, hey, we want you guys to do this project based on your qualifications, we want it to start in June, and they said, we're too busy, we can't start until this date. We've got some flexibility there because with finishing in February, we wouldn't actually need to move into that facility potentially until August. So there is some flexibility there.
Okay.
Now, the architects have seen this since October, so I would be shocked if one of them said, oh, we can't do that, brand new building in Midtown area. So I would be surprised, but that possibility is there, but that's a great point to make. So our next steps on these projects, the architects will be finalizing their design development phase, and then going into May, June, it takes about 2 months to go through and get all the construction documents together. As a reminder, June, Boyd and Jarrett and Hillcrest will begin design. Jarrett and Hillcrest, we have contracts on those. That was done at the time these beginning projects started. Dake Wells will be designing Jarrett, and Buxton Cubic Dodd will be designing Hillcrest. So those go out June, July timeframe. We should be getting Delaware Sunshine and the Southwest Early Childhood out to bid. August, we would be coming to you seeking approval of these bids and getting construction started. And then October, we start design for Williams and Early Childhood Mini Hub. And so we'll have 7 large projects
Awesome.
constructing or out to bid at one time. And the plan, again, as you know, is to be done by the end of 2022. So
Rock
it's,
on. Let's go.
so
Exactly. If I had that much work to do, I'd lose my hair.
you know, I'm gonna let it grow out one
Are
day
you?
and see how much I've really
Okay,
lost.
okay.
Because I keep a pretty good tame on it right now,
Okay,
but we'll
okay.
see what
Are you
it's
telling
like.
me that's fake?
Yes.
Because it's really impressive.
Yeah, thank you, appreciate that.
The thing I was going to mention, though, and this is really for Stephen, is that I think it's evident by this slide show that we are doing what we said we'd do. But I think it's important for us to continue to inform the community on how we're working to keep the promises that we made. And I think that one of the reasons why we were able to gain enough trust of enough voters for this to pass was because they were properly informed. I think we've got to continue to do that.
Yeah, and we've had those conversations already about creative ways that we can continue to show progress once we get moving on the actual construction, so.
Great.
Including launching information on the website as
Yeah,
well.
I think that would really help us now and in the future. Great work, Travis. Thank you for all you're doing and for all you're going to do.
And for remaining
In
calm,
advance, yeah.
even if you're faking it.
No, and thank you for being excited about it too, but this is a very clear overview of the process and the initial details that we need at this point. So I really appreciate it. It helps me be able to answer questions people ask, where are we at? So
Well, they tell me I'm gonna be doing this at every meeting, so it won't be quite this extensive, obviously, but
We love
Really?
it.
Oh, that's good
It
to
is
know.
good to be you.
We love it.
it's great to be here.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
You got applause.
Last
there.
Do we want to keep moving?
Oh, yes.
All right. Our next item is 8.01, Board Policy Adoptions and Revisions. And these were posted at our last meeting. And so unless there's any questions regarding any of these many policies, I'll accept a motion that the board adopt all policies as presented.
So moved.
Charles has made a motion. Is there a second to that?
Second.
Thank you, Bruce. We ready to vote? Please vote. And the ayes have it. Our next item of new business, and by the way, for people in the audience, well, if you're wondering what happened to the superintendent, he's fine. He's being a dad and had to go to, and decided to go to his daughter's presentation at Wilder. So, yeah, which is exactly where he should be. Item 9.01 is new business to accept and that we accept and file the order of the certification of the clerk of Greene County of the results of the school elections held on Tuesday, April 2, 2019. This is a simple motion and approval. Is there someone who wants to make a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Elena, and is there a second? I'll take it from you, Bruce. Motion's been seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Vote by aye. Opposed is a nay. So ordered. 9.02, let me tell you what's going on here is that this is the annual MSBA, who's going to represent us on MSBA. And currently, Charles serves as our board member. Springfield gets a board member position on the School Board Association Board. And Elena and I have been serving as delegates. I would recommend that we just roll.
I was delegate last year.
Yeah, you were delegate?
Yes,
I thought you resigned.
from the board of directors, but I was still delegate.
Okay.
Just to.
And you were an alternate then. So we get 2 delegates, right?
So
Okay.
it was me and you.
I knew that we were
Yeah.
up there at the beginning of the year.
Yes.
Well, look, the fact that
really
my
doesn't
name is
matter.
not represented here, you bet I agree to you guys.
I was
However,
waiting
it
for
might
that.
be time for change, so I'm always good with that.
No, no.
You're cursing yourself.
Yes, it is.
Oh, yeah, yeah. What's the pleasure of the board, guys? What do
Stick
we?
with it.
I would say stick with it. I'm happy to be an alternate because I know as we've discussed, even looking at the future dates, it's gonna be whoever's available of the 3 of us, or the 4 of us, actually.
And knowing in advance, there's one coming up that I will not be able to attend, so I need an alternate.
See,
But
you don't say that before the vote. Keep that to yourself.
I've been a delegate for a number of years, so I'm more than happy if we have someone else who would like to, would step in, but
How about we do this then, Charles? Charles is our
He's our-
board member, and Alina and I will serve, and then we'll have you as an alternate as you are
great,
willing.
that would be fun.
You got that, Kathy? All right. Then let's move on to item 10.01, the first of several unfinished business items. And
The internal auditor should be here. I've been texting to check on his arrival. If you could move on to the next agenda item, he likely will arrive.
wow,
very shortly.
maybe we're just flying through the agenda.
I said it could be 30 minutes to an hour, and it ended up being at the 30 mark.
It doesn't feel like we're flying through it, but great.
Let's fly.
We are
I'm
fine.
All the
flying.
ways I was thinking of describing it, that would not
It
be.
wasn't fine.
Then let's go to 10.02. 10.02 is to approve the annual groceries and supplies bid for the 2019-2020 school year as presented at our last meeting. Alina moves to accept for the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Charles, are we ready to vote?
Oh, yes.
Let's vote. Must have the groceries. And
The milk.
That's not controversial.
10.03 is the milk, juice, and ice cream bid renewal.
Ice cream most important.
Yeah,
So
that's,
On behalf of ice cream fans everywhere, I so.
I'll second. My kids would want me to second that.
okay, and
Not that I let them.
the
know.
motion that has been made and seconded is that the annual milk, juice, and ice cream bid for the 2019-20 school year as presented. All those ready to vote, please vote.
For those first graders that told me we needed more ice cream.
Yes, Charles, and then Jill.
Yeah, we're just talking up a storm here, we're getting a little
We've
tired.
lost track of ourselves.
We got it, they got it, ice cream, excited. Next one is similar in structure, but very different in content. This is that the board approved the bid to purchase staff devices as presented last time, the computers. Charles moves. Is there a second?
I will second.
Thank you. Ready to vote? Let's vote. Next item of unfinished business is a motion is made to approve granting an easement to city utilities on 50 square feet of land at the old Sherwood site, purpose of guy wires and an electrical junction box. President Tim Rosenberry is authorized and directed to execute the fiber optic line easement document on behalf of the school district. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Thank you, Elena. Second?
Second.
Thank you. We ready to vote? Let's vote. next item is a resolution for investment with most Missouri Securities Investment Program, that the board, and the recommended action is that the board approve the resolution approving an intergovernmental cooperation agreement for the investment of public funds through the Missouri Securities Investment Program, AKA MOSIP. Is there a motion to that effect? Elena, is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Bruce. We ready to vote? Let's vote. And I see out of the corner of my eye, Carol coming up to walk us through this next.
Yes. So last board meeting, I did provide to you information regarding the Chromebooks and Chromebook cases for our students for this refresh for grades 3 through 12 in the year 2 cohort, excuse me. And this evening, I'm at the podium to provide on that financing piece of it. So the final bid pricing with regard to the financing came in, and we received 8 separate proposals. The bids were received April 12th, with interest rates ranging from 2.449 to 6.02. We are recommending your approval this evening, entering into a lease agreement with Bank of America Public Capital Corp. The interest rate would be the 2.449 for a 3-year term, and that would cause a resulting annual payment of $618,292.25. The total interest over the 3-year period would be $52,013.24, and the payments for this would be funded through the Capital Projects Fund. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Any questions for Carol? All right, Carol's going to stay up there because we've got a couple more items, but if you'll just be patient with us while we do our business.
Go right ahead.
The recommended action is that the board approves the technology equipment purchase presented and authorizes the execution and delivery of the lease purchase agreement for the Bank of America Public Capital Corporation as lessor for the acquisition, purchase, financing, and leasing of certain technology equipment, authorizing the execution, delivery of other documents required in connection therewith, and authorizing all other actions related to the lease purchase financing contemplated by this resolution. Do I hear a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Thank you, Jill. Is there a second?
Second.
Bruce, we ready to vote? Let's. Yeah, because he used therewith. No one says therewith. And the motion passes. Carol?
Okay, so if we could revert back to the agenda item 10.01, I'll invite Mr. Sam Shriver to join me at the podium. He's with BKD, he's a senior consultant. He's been in internal auditing for 4 years, and I did explain to him that you can't predict the longevity of this board meeting, and tonight was a perfect example. So, as you know, you met him during closed session. When the actual audit was provided to you in rough draft, you had the next 2 weeks to provide feedback or questions, and he's here this evening to provide you with the final update on that audit. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Ladies and board, thank you for the opportunity for me to present the P-card audit reports. I'll keep it short. As you know, we discussed at the closed session a couple weeks ago. We went into greater detail of the report. First off, I'd like to thank Carol, Kim Mulvaney, and the rest of the district staff that helped us on this audit. Everyone was really easy to work with and very full. As you know, our focus of our audit was on district purchasing cards. Our procedures included interviews, walkthroughs, transaction testing related to the district purchasing cards and procedures in place. Overall, we believe the district has really good procedures in place. Duties are segregated. There are several levels of review, and all transactions are highly scrutinized. We did note 6 observations in our report. 5 of those observations were minor, just citing some small room for improvement. We did have 1 observation that we assessed as being high risk. That was our transaction testing. Out of the 30 transactions tested, we noted 6 exceptions, but we discussed these 6 with management, and we concluded that this was a result of a few individuals who were not properly following the procedures as opposed to the actual procedures themselves. And management has said that they are going to correct that going forward. And as you recall, we grade our audits at 3 different levels. We have satisfactory, generally satisfactory, and the unsatisfactory. Due to the high risk assessed on our transaction testing, we had to grade this audit as generally satisfactory instead of satisfactory. But that's pretty much all I have. Does anybody have any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Schreiber?
I believe we answered our questions, so we appreciate you coming to present tonight.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Carol, come back.
Thank you very much.
We do need a vote to accept the audit.
Oh, thank you for reminding me of that. Are we ready to accept the audit as presented? Bruce makes the motion to do so. Charles is the second. We ready to vote? Thank you, Mr. Schreiber. Thank you. All right, the next item is 10.08, South Harrison Real Estate.
Yes, so we've talked about this a number of times during executive session meetings. And as you know, it has been our focus to ensure that any properties that are no longer serving a viable purpose for student use, and we're working toward surplusing those and selling them as we can. The information provided for you this evening is actually to ratify a decision that you made in closed session on April 9th. And this is relative to the South Harrison property. It's approximately 29 acres. It does not include the house and 5 acres that is just to the north of that and south of the Harrison Elementary building. But I do have provided for your review and also for the public consumption the timeline of information with regard to when the property was appraised and surplus. We did do this in a 2-part process because there was an additional 1.6 acres that was surplus at the September 4 meeting. So this evening, we're asking that you would, in this public meeting, ratify the motion that had occurred on April 9th.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Lena. Is there a second?
Second.
Denise seconds. We ready to vote? Let's vote. We use this real estate in closed session because we are allowed by state to do so, and because it involves strict negotiations. But we also want to close this out, our process out in public, so that everyone knows what the board is doing. Let's go to the last of the unfinished business, and that is 10.09, fiscal year 20 budget development on capital projects.
Yes. So this evening, you heard Dr. Shaw present to you information regarding the bond projects. And while the bond is part of the capital fund when we report to the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, this evening's presentation is very focused on the regular capital projects fund. This provides you again our timeline for our budget presentations, and we are at that April 23rd meeting to focus on capital projects. Again, this shows you the division of funds represented through our district, and then we have those 2 fiduciary funds as well for Health Benefit Trust and GoCaps. You can see that capital projects, a tiny sliver relative to the rest of the budget that we manage in the district, 5% of our overall operating budget. This evening, we'll talk about not only the fund sources, but those expenditure types and how we go about prioritizing life cycle replacement review, as well as provide you with some specificity with regard to the recommendations for the FY20 budget. The Capital Projects Fund always begins with that carryover balance from June 30 rolling into July 1, and we are able to transfer funds from the operating account into the Capital Projects Fund. We have a levy that directly goes into the Capital Projects Fund for operating purposes, and there are specific revenue types that can be direct receipted to that fund. And one is merchants and manufacturers surtax, and we do direct receipt the majority of that revenue there. If a district has a levy, sadly, would you have a levy in Fund 1, Fund 2, Fund 3, you could have a levy in Fund 4, then we would certainly be distributing some revenue sources to that fund as well.
How typical is that?
Very unusual for districts to have a levy in the capital projects fund.
Okay.
There may be some smaller school districts that do that, very unusual. And as I have noted here, for FY19, the amount that we are allowed to transfer out of operating in the current year is just over $11 million. That is a figure that's provided to us by the School Finance Department of the Missouri Department of Elementary and Secondary Education each year, and it stays close to that. So fund type expenditures would include items that are $3,000 per item. There is a separate rule that is applied with regard to federal equipment, and that's a $1,000 threshold. But in today's expenditure world, that's a very low threshold. It just hasn't been by the state auditor. So we also include group purchases. So for instance, if we would be buying $3,000 worth of chairs, while individually those items would not qualify as a capital purchase, when we purchase them in bulk, they are coded to Fund 4, which is another reason why you need that ability to transfer out of the operating account over to the capital fund. We also are required to code lease purchase payments or any purchases such as land or major building improvements. Those all must be coded to Fund 4 or the Capital Projects Fund. And this is guidance that's provided by the state office. This slide of our historical trend, and I feel it's important that we continue to revisit. You know, sometimes people have asked, well, why are we behind on our routine repairs and maintenance that need to occur within all of our buildings, nearly 60 buildings? And part of that is because of the economics of the world. And we all know that we experienced a major downturn in the 2008-2009 area, and we saw a significant decline in how much was being invested in capital or addressing those facility needs during that window of time. So this slide shows you fiscal year 06 through fiscal year 14. We averaged during that 1.3 million in capital, but the investments did range between that period of time all the way up to $5,650,000. And I need to correct myself. The low was 1.3 million. Our average investment was 3.5 million. This shows you our capital fund historical trends from FY15 through FY18. And you can see that we are investing in excess of $6 million each year toward addressing the needs within our district. The low being FY16, and we did have a spike in FY17, and part of that of the spending cycle that occurs that I'll address in a moment. So the process continues to include not only our building principals and department leaders submitting their requests, but then the operations team applies cost estimates and then engages with instructional leaders and other operational leaders to prioritize those needs. And from a critical versus necessary, nice to have, that type of measure. And also looked at it through the lens of, is it something that addresses safety or has an instructional impact, and certainly protection of assets. That's the big one. So the spending cycle I mentioned, this is always a rolling process, because, for instance, this summer in our Explorer window of time, we won't be able to access close to 30 buildings while we're educating students. And so we need to stagger the work. That same thing that Dr. Shaw referenced, applying entrances to the bond projects, all of that has to be very laid out in terms of sequencing. So we do have that rolling fund balance where most of the work would take place next year in FY20, but there might be some that will carry over relative to availability of sites and workers. The life cycle process includes that tool that we use. We've talked about it during Focus Area 3 reports, where we are using capital forecasts to help us identify, based on the age of the equipment that all has been inventoried within this software system, what should we be taking a personal look at. And so staff then perform an evaluation if we can get any more useful life out of that particular roof or equipment, whatever the case may be. So now I'm going to provide for you some of the specific projects. So we didn't do this in the past. This year is this is a new thing. So it's exciting, and I have pictures of kids. So the very first one, and these are basically in alphabetical order by project category. The very first one is with regard to athletic fields, and we are making a recommendation to you that an athletic field be developed for baseball and softball for Central High School students. This would provide equity that we need within our system. You're very familiar with what we did for
Let's do it.
Parkview and
Yay.
Hillcrest.
It's awesome
Yes.
when we did that.
Yes, it is exciting. And so we would have that turfed infield and then grass exterior, the outfield. So where this would be located would be the existing land that we have at the transportation. So on Pythian, you're familiar with that property. And we were in the past using Nichols Park, and currently we've moved students to where they're practicing and having some games at Metter Park and then also at Killian. So this, again, provides Central with their own place. If you're curious, when they were at Nichols, it was 2.2 miles from Central, and we all know that we can't have a ball field at Central due to the surrounding downtown area. And it's 3 miles to this property from Central.
And this is in the attendance area?
Yes, it is in the Central attendance.
And we don't have to purchase land.
And we don't have to purchase land. And we had some preliminary assessment done to ensure that the property would be suitable for that. We also did ask our Director of Athletics, Josh Scott, to engage with the coaches, and they are beyond ecstatic, much
So-
like the coaches from Hillcrest and Parkview.
Yeah, like one of the things I appreciated about Travis's presentation was making sure we asked the people, like the teachers in his presentation, and I'm interested in the coaches' response. How was it?
Just that they can't contain their excitement, were, I believe, the exact words that Mr. Scott shared with me. So,
Cool, well, let's
yeah.
get on it.
And you know,
And there's parking.
parking, absolutely. And one thing I want to say about that, because I was able to engage directly, actually, I engaged with coaches when we went through the Hillcrest and the Parkview opportunities, and I was just so impressed with how those coaches were willing to collaborate and work together and make sure that ways to share the space for both the boys and the girls and have baseball and softball in the same place. So I was very impressed with that, and I know that that's exactly how it will play for this new field.
Okay, good, let's do it.
Okay.
And also, and the booster
Yes.
club parents, how was,
Yes.
they're aware of this? Do they know this?
Oh, because
Okay.
we don't have approval from the Board of Education yet.
I get it.
Good,
So-
let's do it.
Yes.
Well,
I think she
I
wants
do
to
know
do
that
it.
when we were going through this process for Hillcrest and Parkview, and then the Hillcrest got the great turf, and it was just
It was fun.
It was.
We went.
We
Yes.
went. I get to throw out the
You
first
threw the
pitch.
ball,
It was
yes.
Awesome. And some of those parents that were part of that booster club, they came out and spoke up for us on the bond issue, that the school district was responsive to their requests to help out in terms of equity in the softball fields. And so they ended up saying, yes, you did what we asked on this, and so we believe you're gonna do what you say you're gonna do on Hillcrest. So it's a great thing, and this is an awesome thing. So
Yes, very excited.
Yeah, especially if they'll be able to call it theirs.
It's time
Yes,
to
it's
vote.
theirs. Do we vote now?
Not yet.
Oh.
Okay, moving forward, large category would be buses and engines, and we're recommending purchasing between 9 to 10 buses. That would help us maintain that average fleet of 9 years, and that would also provide us with a maximum bus age of 16 years. And there's both 77 passenger bus and a 35 passenger bus included in this, and I believe there's really a passenger that would be needed, and all the necessary equipment with that. And in case you ever wanted to know, an engine for a bus costs approximately $20,000 to replace, and that's incredible, but we have to do it sometimes. So the $65,000 is for those engine replacements. And maybe we won't spend it. That's part of why we end up with money going back to the fund when we don't need
Yeah,
to.
but this is important too. It's not quite as cool as a ball field.
But it's
I know.
extremely
Yes, I'm
important.
kind of going to go downhill
I see
from
what you're
there.
doing.
That's
You
okay.
said
Oh,
off the order,
I
but you
did
meant
not.
downhill.
I should have changed that.
We're gonna be doing roofs
Yes.
next.
Hey, but I have your attention. Okay, so cafeteria tables, equipment, and furniture, as you can see in the header, $657,220,000 for that. And in case you wondered about that, one cafeteria table is approximately $1,200, and this would purchase $1,000. We've had a routine in this district where we would provide an allocation, And we've continued that. We actually doubled it a few years ago so that we're addressing even more needs in the district. And then also new stage curtains. We've identified some of the major items there for Bowerman, Mann, and Twain.
Someplace to put the ice cream.
Yes.
Can you give us a quick reminder of
Sure.
old cafeteria tables that are not
So-
functioning properly and
That's right.
are
We have
not safe for kids, so.
Or
how do we do
the
that?
custodians who are working with them every day, putting them
Yes.
up and down. And we have some that have been, some of those really old ones that are really
Yes.
heavy, the mechanisms
They
that
don't
we
fold
need.
up, they
Right.
don't-
And so certainly, if we have anyone who is even slightly injured, that gets reported immediately to our risk management department, and they help in identifying those needs. And then also our friends at GSC work through where are the greatest needs. And I believe our custodial supervisors then collaborate to ensure that we're replacing the right tables.
And then we put those on GovDeals.
Well, if they're dangerous, they are disposed of. Our two options are, you're right, to surplus and place on GovDeals, or to destroy or. Right. So the next category, in just over $1.4 million, is electrical and interior, and that's a picture of one of the restrooms in our district. And we have some really awesome spaces for kids and staff in our district, and we have some that are less than desired. Bathroom renovations would include Bingham, Pleasant View, Wilder, and Westport. We also have some bleacher replacements that are necessary, and that's at the Natatorium, Parkview, and Pleasant View. Ceiling tile replacements, I don't have a picture for you, but Roundtree is in need of that, and then gymnasium sound system at Truman Elementary. So as you can see, with some of the categories that would be covered through this budget, and there are a host of other items contained within that list as well. Exterior and grounds is $665,100, and that can include things that are on the outside of the building, whether it be actually on the ground area or buildings, such as those new awnings at Pershing and Wilder. I believe I might have, that's supposed to be a lift station, right, Travis? I have a new life station. I'm giving life
Yes,
to
you are.
Truman. That would be a typo.
But that makes sense.
Yeah, we need some new doors leading out to the bay, and then also we've got a multitude of parking lot repairs and sidewalk repairs or curb repairs, and those sites are listed for you as well. For flooring, we are showing $641,000 to be attributed to replacing carpet or tile or refinishing floors, and certainly addressing concerns that exist throughout the district. And a couple of items are highlighted here. Fill in the library story wells, and those two pictures show you the story well. It's a little bit difficult to see, but they actually create a safety hazard area for students, and I know that the feedback we've received from those lighted and those go away. So it's an accessibility issue as well. So those are Pittman, Sequioto, Wilder, and York, and then refinishing main gym floors at the 5 high schools. For heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, we have $818,000 allocated. And basically what it says, addressing those HVAC issues. We have some old boiler systems, but we also have significant expenses relative to the controls replacement. And we have identified Disney, Central, and Campbell for HVAC controls replacements. We also have some mandated software upgrading that needs to happen within that. For technology, this is not the devices for students or staff. This is about the infrastructure, and we need to replace equipment for Springfield Underground, and that provides for our backup services. Also replacing edge firewalls, and then replace switches in the middle school area. That's about as interesting as that can get right there. So you did approve earlier this evening the lease for the Chromebooks, and you see I have that amount listed there at $618,299. We're also at this point contemplating year 2 iPad replacement lease due to the aging out of the operating system. So that is estimated currently at $305,000. And then as we look at leases rolling off, we're eliminating that 2016 annual lease payment, and so that then results in a grand total of $262,175, dependent on where that amount lands.
Carol, is that iPad, is that kindergarten first, second, or iPads? Kindergarten first?
Yes.
Second, or
Yes.
did second get Chromebooks?
Well, the majority get iPad, we got Chromebooks and tablets.
Okay. Because I know teachers in second grade came back and told, we want Chromebooks. Okay.
Okay. We don't have a lot in being invested in nutrition services equipment, but when you think about the fact that we have all those needs in all of our buildings with freezers and ovens and dishwashers and that type of thing. So basically, 93,000 has been identified as the need. Playground equipment, we go through a process of evaluating our playgrounds, and we do need to replace relative to not only the suitability for those kids, accessibility, age appropriate, and safety, always a top concern. So these are the sites where we've identified service at Bingham, Cowden, Pittman, Portland, and Watkins. And actually, I need to take Portland out of that. That one will not happen. Also, age-appropriate ADA surface for Shining Stars, and then new containment would take place at various sites, as well as some composite structures at Field and Man. On roofing, we have $1.5 million as a budgetary placeholder for those needs, and the following sites identified are Campbell Preschool, Central High School, Cowden Elementary, and Kickapoo High School. Tuck pointing, just over $400,000. We have listed Bowerman, Central High School, Cherokee, Kickapoo, Pleasant View, and Pittman Middle School. Pittman Middle School, that's not right. Boy, I'm just having quite an evening tonight,
Well,
aren't I?
I'm so impressed with your picture, though.
I know.
Like, just not everybody
So
can
many.
find.
I know.
just a
I thought you'd
pointy
enjoy that. Yeah.
Did you have Travis go out there and just like?
I think he phoned a friend. We have other people who really enjoy taking pictures of before and after, and so that helped. Okay, so White Fleet vehicles, we're requesting a $500,000 allocation, and I have a few factoids listed for you here. 27 vehicles in our White Fleet. 19 are at least 19 years or older, with the oldest being 32 years. And to replace all of those 19 would be approximately $600,000. We're still going to look and see, can we get any more miles out of this vehicle? Sure, that is depicted shows you a rusted out floorboard where that white area is the ground. That's the ground. So, you know, we want to make sure that our employees are safe as well.
Carol, take that one away now. I mean, we can't do
Take it away
Get
now.
rid of that
Yeah.
one.
That's
So-
unacceptable.
One thing I'm excited about, I'll note, is, and I did mention up above that our vehicles serve 138 square miles in our district and 57 buildings. So when you think about all the driving that is taking place with these vehicles, it's kind of amazing that we have some that are that old. So the other piece I'm excited about, though, is the recommendation to purchase. Sometimes we have a small team, say a golf team, when it's just not economically feasible to send a yellow bus. And so we're recommending the purchase of 2 Suburbans for groups that are too small for a bus. Okay, yes.
Just to clarify, because I know you're getting ready to move on to the little spreadsheet, but
Yes.
this is not just all of the needs, but the highest priority needs that you're making recommendation,
Right.
generally speaking, for this next budget year.
That is correct, yes. These are real items that have been identified through the process.
I guess what I mean is there could be other needs that exist out there, but it may
Oh,
be-
sure.
These are the highest priorities,
There-
is what you're saying.
That is exactly right.
Okay.
So definitely the needs exceed the available funds.
And when you receive requests from, well, I don't know that it comes to you, I guess my question is when you hear about a local elementary school PTA wanting to raise dollars, playground project or whatever.
Sure.
Is that coordinated with the district based on what the plan is over the next
It
few years?
is, it is. So we ask that all leaders submit their requests through our school duty work order system.
And you mean
Re-
building principals?
Our building leaders, principals or department directors, which would be a department director. And the main reason for that is that regardless of the funding source, we have to ensure that all items are compliant with building code, safety provisions are maintained through the process, and no better than our very own team happens. So we have project coordinators who oversee all of the work, and again, regardless of funding source. But certainly, if a principal submits a work order and says, okay, here's what I'd like to have, and by the way, my PTA has raised all the money for it, I can assure you that gets across the threshold very quickly after we comply with district standards, with building code requirements, and the safety requirements included in that. So, does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, sure. Okay, so moving forward. So that concludes my pictorial demonstration of some of the
I don't think we've
needs.
ever seen that.
I know,
That's
I was
impressive.
so excited. Dr. Shaw helped me with that and reached out to friends in the district who are the
Phone a
boots on
friend.
the ground, who really know this place like the back of their hands. So this reminds you now, I looked at this slide and then I realized as I looked at the treasurer's report this evening, it's changed ever so slightly. But this basically, we had been increasing our capital fund budget, not knowing where the bond issue would land in preparation for that. And we do show in the current year approximately 12 million in revenue, and again, most of that, about 10 million of it, is that emergency revenue going in there. And then our expenditure base at this point in time is just over $20 million. So that would indicate that we would end with almost $24 million in our budget at the close of this year. Now, a lot of that is dependent on how much work we're going to be able to deliver. And Travis and I visited, our team has worked very, very hard to deliver projects, and we feel great about the progress that's occurred this year within that. But that will be adjusted again, and we'll roll the budget forward, but the projects will also roll forward. So as we enter into the new year, we may see a budget recommendation come forward very quick, as I would say, asking that whatever was left for projects in the current year gets moved over. And the whole team will be very disciplined and focused on ensuring that whatever work's delivered gets invoiced and we pay those bills as best we can. So, moving forward, I want to also share with you about this. This is work that's kind of in FY19 and FY20, but these items represent the focus of the team, and that team has included Dr. Shaw, Mr. Douglas, Mr. Range over safety and security. We've had Mr. Farrell involved in that process too, and then often we've met frequently to focus on safety over the past several months. And remember that you agreed to allow us to address $3.5 million worth of expenditures in the current year, and much of that is being delivered. We'll have some of that carryover as well. But overall, at the end of the day, we will have, number one, entrances for students for the main office building. The intercom systems will work in all the classrooms is our goal, and that's projected for summer of 19. Having security camera coverage and surveillance of all those exterior doors is targeted for summer of 19. Upgrading radio signals and cell for dead spots. So just so you understand, we've approved, you have approved in the past contracts where we would have a consultant come in and do testing in various buildings. And we first reached out to our principals to say, help us know where your challenges are in your buildings so that we can address those.
Yes, and Scott, and in looking at design work and construction work for our projects coming up, I don't know how, it's not my area of expertise, but I would hope that someone would be considering the cellular coverage, because I know even some of our new, for example, major challenges with cell coverage in there. So I just hope that that's one thing that we can learn from, and that as we are working on our
The
construction.
new build, absolutely.
Yeah.
So we're looking at boosters in the areas that are needed to ensure that we have the appropriate coverage, and that will be part of the consideration. Okay, number 5 is auto lock capability for exterior doors, and that's targeted for summer of 2019. Security clearance badge access at all exterior doors. We'll be running a pilot in spring of 2019. And then the last one, bullet resistant film on glass for main office and entrances. I really had some challenges on my typing. So all that culminates, all those individual projects culminate, and this grand total recommendation of $10,249,895 in expenditures, and this is by category, again, with athletics being the lead, And the impact to our capital fund balance results in a revenue estimate of $9 million. That's our starting point for revenue for next year. The expenditures, again, the $10,249,895, and the investment in bond projects. So we've, during the community task force meetings and with that group, to ensure that we could manage all the projects, that the capital fund investment would be $20 million towards projects. And so for the first year, we are indicating a $7 million contribution to that end. That then results in an ending fund balance of $15,731,000, just under. So, any questions for me?
Questions for Carol?
Wow.
When we sell surplus property, does it go back into operating?
It goes to the capital fund. So, for instance, $30,000 will go into the capital fund.
Good question. Anything else?
I guess I want to make a comment. I know that during, again, so many of us are still recovering from the bond campaign and the questions asked. And I know many times people ask, why haven't we taken care of, have we just let them set, haven't we taken care of them? And why are they, well, they're in the shape they are because they're an average of what, 86 years old?
That's
Average.
actually, the ones on the
That's just
project
the average
list,
on the
right?
project list.
But we
And
have
the other-
buildings over 100 years old.
Right, and Sunshine is one, is Sunshine?
Sure, the
I know boys are, but, yeah. So when we look at the needs, and as Alina said, that's certainly not all the needs, but you have just listed those things we believe are priority, and it's over $10 million. And that's just doing those things are priority year. So it's not like that the district has not taken care of those priority needs on those years when there was dollars to do it. Because I remember back in the years when there were not dollars to do that. There were not dollars to give staff raises for a couple of years. So certainly there was not dollars to do some of the repairs that needed to. So I just think this is a time where this is good information for folks to see how much it costs to just do that basic high priority maintenance in a school year. And it's just amazing when you look at just the cost for HVAC. And I thought it was interesting to see some of our buildings that, I think a few that I wrote down are some that, like ceiling tile replacement Roundtree and replacing HVAC at Campbell, and I'm sure there's more that could be done, but those are some of those immediate needs, and they're old buildings. So I think this, for some folks, would be great information.
I would just add that I appreciate the high-level specific overview, so that as we look at the line item request moving forward, we've at least seen, I just feel like this was a little bit more specific this year.
Very much so.
Yeah, thank you for that, and it helps me have a visual and a reminder as we move forward this year and what buckets it's coming out of. But thank you for that.
Anything else for Carol? Carol, thank you.
Okay. Next meeting will be purchase services and supplies. They won't have any pictures, we'll see.
Oh, come
I
on.
know, I'll see
We're
what I
gonna
can.
set a standard.
I know.
Yeah,
Stick with it.
yeah,
We like
stay to,
pictures.
adhere to the standard, please. All right.
We're visual learners.
That's right, we are.
Next up is public comments to address non-agenda items, and I have 5.
You see what happens when you stick it out?
Thank you for doing that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You're awesome, you can come anytime.
Yeah, anytime.
Okay, yeah, let's not, don't overcommit with this.
So we have, let me just read this for the 5 speak comments on topics not related to the printed agenda. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes for each speaker and will be timed by the board secretary. And because there are multiple speakers, I'll gavel at the end of 3 minutes, just so that we can, out of respect for each speaker. It's inappropriate to address the board about individual students or individual staff members by name in open meeting. If you have concerns about individuals, these concerns should be addressed through the appropriate administrative supervisors, either in the schools or in the district office. The board uses this time in our meeting to listen to comment, but will not comment for or engage with speakers during this meeting. If you have materials that you want to share, please provide them to the board secretary and she will distribute them to the board members. Our first speaker is Tony Robinson.
Good evening.
Good evening and welcome.
I feel like I've met most of you all. I'm the president of the local Springfield NAACP chapter. I'm going to be reading the response statement to the incidents that occurred at Kickapoo. Before I read the statement, I do want to mention that it was brought to my attention by Mr. Dawson that there is a policy in regards to cyberbullying. In the cases that I've dealt with students, that parents and families do not feel that that policy is being enforced. So I'm going to go ahead and read the statement. In the first week of April, 2 posters commemorating the Day of Silence were destroyed in a place dedicated to civil discourse. On a day intended to remember the silenced voices of LGBTQ people, the supporters of civil rights was displayed for a crowded Kickapoo High School parking lot to witness. For 113 years, the NAACP has stood on the truth that all people are equal, that all should be treated just. Today, we affirm this for the students of Kickapoo High School and SPS. We stand with them, and we stand against any actions that demean who they are as people and as individuals. While we are aware that the student body was addressed and the flag incident was handled and dealt with, we understand that these incidents are a reflection of a system that perpetuates hate and fear. We request that there is a no-tolerance policy for the display of the Confederate flag. Civil rights of all students do not matter. We are committed to assist in the work that is necessary to ensure equality for all SPS students so that such incidents cannot occur again. Thank you all for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker, did I pronounce that correctly?
You did.
Oh, good.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening and welcome.
I have my cat notebook, not a like
Go
professional
Cats.
portfolio like Tony had.
Some of us here really like cats, so
Yeah.
you're good.
All right, so I am the director of GLSEN Springfield, the fourth-year gender sexual alliances in the high schools. And the Day of Silence is a GLSEN event. All right, so many people were shocked when hearing about the recent anti-LGBTQ actions at Kickapoo. Sadly, I was not. Yes, these are visible and overt examples of homophobia in Springfield Public Schools. Deal with similar, though less public actions every day. According to the most recent National School Climate Survey, 59.5% of LGBTQ students felt unsafe at school because of their sexual orientation. 4.6% because of their gender expression. 34% of LGBTQ kids missed a day of school because they felt unsafe. Almost all LGBTQ students, 98.5%, have heard gay used in a negative way. 91% felt they felt distressed because of the language. 90.4% of LGBT students heard negative remarks about gender expression. 62% heard these frequently. Perhaps the most shocking to me is 56.6% of students reported hearing homophobia teachers or other school staff. And 71% of students reported hearing negative remarks about gender expression from teachers or other school staff. LGBTQ students are not a political issue. They are not a liberal or conservative issue. They are not an issue who deserve to feel safe at school and to feel supported by teachers and administrators. The queer kids are not the problem. It is the world they live in that is so misinformed and judgmental. We must educate teachers, administrators, and school staff. It's our committee towards LGBTQ students. We must create school environments that are welcoming to queer teachers so they can be out at work and be examples for their students. Lastly, we must specifically include enumerations for LGBTQ students in anti-harassment and bullying policies. Administrators say that they support all kids in response to my questions of supporting queer kids. That reminds me of last week when I stood in front of Kickapoo with a Black Lives Matter flag, and people responded that all lives matter. That misses the point. It is designed. We have to
speaker is Patricia Lou Hood.
Hi guys,
Hi.
I'm Luann Hood, or Lou. I am a senior at Kickapoo High School, along with the co-president of the Glow Centers Youth Group. And so when all of this was going on, it was really shocking. And not shocking in the sense that I didn't expect it, but shocking in the sense of I thought that I had switched schools, and I had thought that this was a more accepting situation. It was a lot worse in an administrative standpoint, but also a student standpoint, but I'm seeing now that the students are about the same. I had a freshman come up to me, and they told me they were scared to go to school and burst into tears. And it was really hard for me as someone that they looked up to. And I think it's really important that we make sure that this is a safe environment for students. Because I'm really tired of hearing my friends come to me and tell me that they're scared. And I hear comments in the hallways, I hear students talking about how they want to kill other students, without saying names, of course, but they talk about how they're like, wow, I don't understand why this is not. But the reason they're necessary is what they're saying. They're creating the need for these clubs. They don't see it, but them tearing down those signs was the reason we have those signs. And I think it needs to be addressed on a school-wide situation. I think the whole district needs to be more aware of these situations. I've heard stories from other schools. I've heard stories from the middle schools, the elementary schools. Kids with gay parents are being bullied for their parents. They're not even gay. They're just kids trying to play on the playground. And it's just not right. And parents are attacking other parents because their students are wanting to. Jimmy can't be friends with Timmy because Jimmy's parents are lesbians. Like, that's not okay. And I think it would be a really good idea to try to do some diversity assemblies, starting maybe with the younger kids. There are a lot of really strong organizations here in Springfield that would be willing and probably ecstatic to come in, things in a way that these audiences would be able to handle. I mean, it's not even a gay issue. We could talk about all of these things because they all kind of tie in. When you're a minority together, and then you become a majority. And we want to make it to where there's less hate. And I'd go into every single school and talk to every single student. Unfortunately, I can't do that, but I think it would be great to focus on diversity inclusion and making it to where diversity isn't just about diversity, it's about the majority. Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker on the docket is Sydney Landon or London Smith?
London.
Okay, welcome.
So, like they said, my name is Sydney London Smith, and I'm also a senior at Kickapoo High School, and I am the secretary. Beforehand, I came from West Plains, and I moved here about my junior year, so I've only been in the Springfield public school systems for about 2 years. I started questioning my sexuality when I was in 6th grade, and I came from a very small system. I was in the West Plains School District, and turning to my sophomore year, from both students, teachers, and staff, I was discriminated for being a lesbian. I remember a specific example was in my freshman history class. I was not allowed to sit with other girls because the teacher feared that I would disrupt them and touch them, quoting him. So I was so excited because I was finally in a place where I felt like I would not be scared. When those banners swarmed down, that was one of the first days in 2 years I had been scared to come to school the next day. I was scared on Monday to come to school. I've worked with the high school, with the middle schools, with the elementary schools. I was on elementary school, and I heard daily from 2nd graders, kids not even a double digits of age, being tormented and saying these awful slurs to. This problem isn't starting with the older kids, the younger ones. We need to address these problems of discrimination and this acceptance that we are all one community. We're one strong community, and if we build these roots in when they're younger, we can have when they're older lives. We cannot let these happen again and again and again. And it's not just the students job to do this. It's also on the teacher's job. It's the administration's job. Currently, we do not have protection under anti-discrimination. You guys help start that. That's one thing to propose, but once again, putting a proposed will not solve everything. We have to have more inclusivities, we have to have more activities, more things to bring us all together so that we know, like we say at Kickapoo, we are one tribe. We are not just one tribe here at our entire school. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker is Ashley Quinn. Welcome.
Thank you all. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I came here to support the job. I don't know that I have a whole lot to add to that. I'd like to second what they said, what Carrie said, representing GLSEN. My name's Ashley Quinn, and I'm just a queer and trans adult. I facilitate the youth group at the Glow Center every Tuesday, so I skipped out on that to be here because I thought that it was important that you all know that, like, there are two kids that were brave enough to come forward and speak on behalf of their schools. Like they said, it's not unique to Kickapoo, and we work with youth from all over Springfield, from middle schoolers. We serve kids from 12 to 20. And I was talking to some of them about, like, is there something I can take to the school board on your behalf? And they kind of were like, meh. And then I said, like, is there something that's so normal for you, but is actually pretty shitty that you've just gotten used to? I mean, I hear people say that's gay, and they mean it's stupid or it's bad or something like that. They use it in a derogatory way, and they said that happens all the time, everywhere I go. And I thought, I was listening to Dan Patterson talk about abuse and domestic violence, and if you lived in a household where you were told by your parents, that would be an abusive household. And these kids are going to schools where they're hearing that all day long. And so I think that we've got to figure out a way to make our schools not a place of abuse for our lesbian, gay, transgender, queer kids, because they deserve one of the reasons why I'm at the Glow Center every Tuesday is because I love that it is a place. I want to make sure that there's a place that the kids can go and be respected with their pronouns and their names and for who they are, for their whole selves, for the people that they like to hold hands with. And that's a place that's safe for that. And for some of them, their homes are not safe for that. And for them, a lot of them, their schools are not safe for that. And I think that the GSTAs that are these opportunities for kids to come together, and maybe they find one supportive teacher in their school that they can talk to change the whole culture, both for people of color and for queer kids in our schools. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. We're closing in on the agenda. Want to go board administrative reports and then board comments, upcoming meetings?
Could we just take a quick break?
Yeah, let's go ahead and take a 5-minute break.
Thank you all for being here.
Thank you. We'll take a 5-minute break.
Awesome. So I just thought I'd remind everyone that the Hall of Fame deadline for applications is April 30th. So we've had a number of those come in. Final few days. I want to highlight the Gallons for Growth fundraiser. Come and Go is partnering with the Foundation for SPS. And so on Thursday, the 25th, from midnight to midnight, 3 cents of every gallon of gas sold will go to the foundation. And last year, just for context, that raised about $7,000. So a great fundraiser. This morning, Dr. Goff is going to talk about the implications of the kindergarten readiness study, but there was a lot of media attention on a kindergarten teacher from Cowden Elementary, and so that will be coming out in the news leader as well as Cullerton and KSMU. And then finally, I just wanted to follow up on Mr. Rosenberry, your comments about the communication with the community about progress as promised. We are committed to that, and in fact, tomorrow morning, a news release will be going out with the first project bids that are available, and we've now launched a website or webpage on the site, sps.org/progress, which will track all of that, and there is a timeline currently onloaded this evening, and so we'll continue to keep that updated, including
Is it
videos, so.
Prog-S?
SPS progress, yes.
Hopefully everybody got that joke. I'm
Very
sorry.
clever.
Prog-S, or is it progress?
No, we're moving on.
Yes. Thank you.
Well, this is a very busy time for our wrapping up the school year. We're asking them to push forward and hire and continue that early hiring effort. And so we currently have about 45 teaching positions posted, elementary, middle, and high school levels, as well as special education. We have about 35 coaching positions posted as well, and a number of classified paraprofessional, maintenance, custodial, as well as summer positions for our Explore program. And so if you are aware of candidates, please send them our way. We have implemented our new application system, and we did that in December. And just a little tidbit that you'll be hearing more about in our upcoming. At this point in time, we've received over 700 applications for positions in the district from 4,800 unique individuals. It's the same time frame last year under our old system, we had 4,800 applications from 1,595 people. So we have marked increase in individuals who are interacting with us. We're always looking for those good candidates, and so please encourage individuals to continue to apply, and we will take a look.
Just would want to thank the Mayor's Commission today for publishing the kindergarten readiness report. I had shared a kind of advanced copy with you earlier. It's kind of reduced lunch students, and it really goes back to the mission and vision that you have for expanding early childhood and community support. And we can't wait to see what that report looks like as we continue to expand. And I think by 2021 we'll have 1,000. Fortunate what that report looks like, and 2025 it could be really special. So we want to thank them for their research and sharing that. Also wanted to just thank the Build My Future organization group and everybody who put that together. It's probably one of the highlight events for our kids. It's around the construction trades. We had 2,700 all hands-on. So it's not like going to a conference and you walk the booths. Every single kid is engaged doing something, from building tiles to we saw kids using a dump truck trying to, in a scoop, trying to move basketballs to all the, I mean, it was just so cool. And those kids walked out of there with, you could I had no idea they existed. And so we as Springfield spent 500 students there, and that's increased every single year. And I suspect that will become a 2-day event at some point, and we'll actually continue to maybe engage even middle school kids, is what I've given them a suggestion of. So today was a big day. We started map testing. Go to bed early. That's a great idea. So we got that kicked off for the system, and I think we're off to a good start. Want to let you know about some events. It's that time of year. We got a lot of stuff happening in the system, and so tomorrow, Dr. Putnam, about our kids. There's a documentary now that goes along with around Robertson Community School, and they will be featuring that tomorrow at the Fairbanks. They're kind of showing an advanced showing of that. So that's available. Parkview Leadership School graduates, they're having a reception over at Parkview, and we also have the Go Caps Showcase. So if you're looking for the next entrepreneurs, Thursday we're going to be hosting the governor for the Governor's Safety Task Force at Glendale High School, so he'll be coming. Thursday night we have the IB, the International Baccalaureate Banquet, so we'll be looking over 100 students who have been in that DP program. And on Saturday morning, so he will. I am so excited to pass that torch on to him.
You did that.
I did it last year, and so.
Look at your hair.
Yeah, it didn't grow back in the back, so something messed up back there. I'm excited. I know they raised thousands of dollars. Last week was last week was a pancake breakfast. So these kids organize that whole event, and they give it back into the. To a cause, so I'm thankful Mr. Lee has stepped up as a community member for that. Thank you.
Carol?
I believe you have heard what's been going on in the operations area, from real estate. Lots of work going on behind the scenes, and we will continue to keep you informed. So, thank you.
That's it for admin reports. Legislative update. We're down to the home stretch, so 4 weeks. So stay engaged. I'll be heading up tonight after we get done. Tomorrow is our Metro Partnership breakfast with the Chamber. try to engage with legislators and be on site to kind of track bills and see where we are this week. The things that we're considering or watching closely are charters. Obviously, we saw they created another vehicle for that to move potentially last week. Haven't seen anything happen yet this week, but charter, SBA is highly engaged in. The last thing is really around budget and really monitoring this year's budget. We know that there's been lots of discussion about is it really going to come in or not, and we're waiting on kind of that April 15th date for collections. They improved, but they haven't been improved to the level that's that's much better than the 350 it was about a month or so ago, but still a lot of questions of where we're going to end this budget year, which has a lot of implications for next budget year, because everything that's built on this, or this budget year, is built on a consensus revenue on top of what you're supposed to collect this year. So thus far, the creation of the formula, that will go to the Senate floor to begin to be debated likely this week or next week. We'll see where that lands. But they have till May 10th, and that's when the budget has to be done. May 17th, all other bills have to be done. So it gets interesting during the last few weeks.
Any comments from members of the board at this time? Anyone?
Just quickly, but no one's here to hear it, but what our teachers are going through
This is
right
being
now-
recorded.
Yeah, I know. But what our teachers are doing right now to get our kids excited about and prepared for taking them for a low stakes test for the kids. And they already know it. Even at 4th grade, many of them are asking questions of why is this important to me? And, you know, it's just kind of trickled down because they did that in high school even back in my day. Why is this important to us? And how does this count for a grade? But I've been hearing about it and watching, and so that some of our schools are doing map testing, pep rallies and map testing assemblies to get the kids excited, and map testing T-shirts and special quiz prep games in the classroom to get. So it's just such a big deal in the buildings, and this is spring and the weather's nice and kids are not always as engaged in taking the state tests that they don't really get the importance of. So our teachers are working hard and they're trying hard, and all of you know that are out in the buildings, how hard they're working. But not so much the kids. So
Thank
we
you.
want to encourage them
Yeah.
for all the work they're trying to do to get this going.
For sure.
Well, absolutely. Anything else? I've got a few upcoming meetings. One was the University tomorrow night. Put on your calendars to come early to the May study session, because that is the annual retirement reception. And that's at 4 o'clock in meeting room A. That's all I've got. Any other?
We already talked about Thursday night,
Yeah. Yep. If you've got plus delta notes, please give them to the board secretary at the end of the meeting. And we have executive session. So the recommended action to discuss real estate, personnel, and collective bargaining matters is provided in sections 610.021, paragraphs 2, 3, 9, and 13 of the revised statutes of Missouri.
so moved.
Thank you, Lena. Is there a second?
Second.
Charles, thank you. Ready to vote? Let's vote. Thank you, everyone, for your attendance.
Thank the audience. Thank you.
I guess that would